Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of It's Your Birthday. We got you a gift, and surprise, it's video games. I'm your host, Kelly Workman. Today I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Christian Langston. Christian, how are you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. How you doing? I'm playing games, making a living, trying to anyway. I know it's crazy times out there, but making it happen every step of the way. So, how you been?
Doing okay. Doing pretty good. Been playing a lot of video games as always. Being stuck indoors for what feels like 2 to 3 years, although it's been 6 months, which is about the equivalent.
Yeah, March feels like a daydream, like from 40,000 years ago.
Yeah, well, 2020 is, I think the quote going into this year was like, how many years can we pack in 1 year? And you're like, yeah, we'll do our best to get at least 6 in there. And so far they've done pretty good. It really does feel like each month has been a full year. So it's actually, in a way, it's nice to get time back because it feels like everything is taking so long. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah.
I feel like I've like physically aged through the whole process because like you think of every game that's come out from now until like the pandemic or whatever, you know, Animal Crossing, I think, and Doom are like the big first releases. But it's like, I haven't played Doom Eternal in a very long time until today, and I looked at the last time I played it, and it was only like a month ago, but it feels incredibly long.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 I still haven't dipped back in. I think I got to whatever the Broken City area was. That's the whole game. No, the it's like a. I'm about to just describe a level, but it was basically that city structure with like the jump pads, and they all colloquialize in one section. This is a bad description. I played that game a bit. I played maybe 5 to 10 hours of it, I think, but I definitely haven't finished it yet. I kept getting it to crash is what happened. I don't know.
You're talking in total, you've only played like the 10 hours.
Yeah. Okay. I think right after I think I played maybe 2 hours after getting the second shotgun, the Doom shotgun, more or less.
Super shotgun, the best weapon in the game.
Yeah, absolutely, that one. Yeah. So I stopped a little whiles after that, but yeah, I kept, for whatever reason, just crashing to desktop. I have no idea why, but that's it. So.
I have a friend who runs like who was trying to run an AMD graphics card recently. Said, fuck this, I'm tired of the crashing like every 10 minutes. Went and got an NVIDIA card. We're good to go. I don't know what your exact setup situation is, but usually just ripping something out and replacing it, that's like the go-to fix.
Well, currently it has a 2080 Ti in it, so that will not be getting replaced.
Yeah, I would not.
So I don't know. I don't know what it is, because it'll play fine for like 2 or so hours, and then it just is like, I'm done, and then it just completely stops. I've not had this issue with any other game for whatever reason. It just doesn't want me to finish it.
Yeah, and I know like it's not a big deal for you because your obsession in that time was Animal Crossing. I know that for a fact.
Oh God, yeah. And then I dropped off that cliff, almost jumped off of it. I don't know what had happened. I think what happened with that game is like once I had everything terraformed and my town set up completely, I had no goal again. I was like, well, that's that. And then I was like, I could shake trees another day. I think what it was is I started to get into the coloring of flowers, the gardening aspect or whatever. And then when I realized that they have an entire genetics chart of how that might be possible with like 5% of this DNA strand mating with this one to possibly make this one, and then you need like local grown roses to then have a higher chance of, and then I was like, you know what, I don't think I want flowers that are different colors anymore. I think I'm good.
What I did is I had like 3 plots of like flower farms, I guess you would call them, like fenced off areas, dirt, and I just planted a bunch. I didn't like read a guide. I mean, like friends have sent me guides on like the hybrid flowers and all that stuff. I just planted them. If they appeared cool, whatever. All I really wanted and all I was after was like a golden watering can, because it's like the easiest golden item to get in the game.
Yeah.
So you get that, and it's like, okay, now I can make gold roses with black roses, and that's cool, I guess.
I gotta be honest, the gold roses kind of look bad. I think I don't really love I like the black ones better than the gold.
They make good gifts, as
Oh
far
yeah,
as I can
fair,
tell. Like, cause high value and like villagers that like flowers, I'm sure they would like those. I'm
yeah. Right.
sure. But yeah, I get what you mean. Cause when I played Animal Crossing, I got up to the terraforming portion and I was like, okay, I have the ideas of things I want to do, so I did my ideas, and then I was like, fuck, that's only 30% of this map. What
Yeah.
am I gonna fill out with the rest? So I actually made a lot of artistry out of mistakes. And
Oh sure,
so
yeah.
what I did was I planted a like an orchard, but I did the dummy thing and did too many trees in a square because the game
I did
100%
that.
tells you that you can't do that.
Right.
It's right on the box. You can't grow that many trees.
Right. Yeah.
So inevitably a whole like hollow in the middle didn't grow. So I was able to turn that into like a campsite kind of like thing. And like I was like, oh, okay, the cliff formation in this place sucks. Let me just round out the edges, do a couple things there, and then that was it for like a month. And just no ideas. So I love that game. I love Animal Crossing.
Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, I played every one of them, and this one is no exception. I played this one, I think, probably even longer than the other ones, which is surprising. And I mean, I still dip in and check on the updates and all that because I just did. I think the Dream Suite, but I still haven't. That one I actually haven't checked out. The other ones I have, but
Yeah,
I think again the other milestone is like in games where you get to be somewhat artistic. I enjoy all those aspects of the game, but in this one specifically, it's so cumbersome to get any idea out that it's like hard to enjoy the process because it's like, okay, I'm gonna hit this corner of this thing 8 times to get it angled perfectly right, and then if it's not right on the other side of whatever I'm building, then I have to. It's such a laborious process, and by virtue, just by nature of the way the game is designed, it's like, okay, well, if I want to move this house, I have to move this other house first that's like slightly by it, and then I move the other house right to where it needs to be, and then I get to move that first house back to another one, and that's like at minimum like 3 real days. And if you're not time traveling, it's like, okay, I have just tried, and by that time I've like already moved on. It's like the idea is there, but I'm like, I don't, because it's like with art, it's like if I'm gonna do a thing, I'm gonna get the idea out and then move on. But this is like I have to be too patient to where the value of doing it seems to wither away. It's like I don't really care anymore to do this. Whereas in other stuff, like the game I've been playing recently for Grounded, for example, it's like at least in that one there's a creative mode, so you can. It's like I'll just flesh this idea out here. If I want to move it to the regular game, I already know the layout and everything, and it's very quick. And yeah, it's a much more enjoyable process as opposed to the time sink, I guess, that Animal Crossing ends up being. Actually, I look at it very similar because I think Fallout 76 and Animal Crossing are effectively the same game. One is just based in the apocalypse. Because really, if you look at Fallout 76, there's no end game to that game still. The end game of it is decorating your house, but you're killing a bunch of creatures to get there as opposed to trying to help them live a better life, I guess, or at least a more item-filled life or whatever. But yeah, they're effectively the same game, but it's at least in that one there's more day-to-day objective. It's like, okay, well, I'll do this mission or this whatever. Animal Crossing, and it's no fault to the game, it's always been designed that way, but I find that even with the Nook Mile thing, it's still like I think the reward for Nook Miles is a little too limited for it being your line through to actually participate in stuff happening in the game.
I will say, the first like month that game up until you get the terraforming, if you're playing it straight that way and like you're putting in the hours, I know some people who hit that like milestone like a lot sooner, and I tried my best to pace it out because I knew once I get the terraforming and once that stuff starts, then it's just the loop of visit the shop, go talk to, the NPC that's visiting.
Shake a tree, hit your rocks, do your chores. Yeah.
So I kind of like the aspects of like, hey, you have to like craft this furniture, place it in a lot for this villager to show up. It reminded me of Pocket Camp in a way of that. Like, hey, I'll come to your place, but put this shit on your campsite and I'm there. Like, I loved those aspects of things, but that drops off early.
Yeah, and I wish there was more of that. Like I thought that was going to be. I was like, oh, this is it's narratively speaking, I was like, oh, this is really cute. You get to make stuff for this person moving in. You get to bring them some things they like, and then like a welcoming gift or whatever. And then it's like, well, you do that 3 times, and then it's just whoever you want, or get on Reddit and Facebook and bribe someone or pay them $8 million to give you the guy you want or whatever, and it becomes this. I think that maybe that's the other side of it, is just the social aspect of this game has formed. And I think by virtue of so many people who have never played Animal Crossing get a hold of Animal Crossing, and the online integration of this one specifically is like, I feel like it in a way really ruined the game, because it became this really weird like foot race with these like sub black markets of different like avenues of a delightful island escape became like, all right, I've got the best prices here. You got to come here between this time and this time. You got to leave a donation of this. All right, I got this villager. It's going to be this many tickets. If you don't have it, this guy is going to get it. And it's like, holy shit, man. These are like, it's like a kid's game about cute animals. And it's became this really wild, obstructed race to get the thing you want. And
I think a lot of that has died down. You look at the turnip exchange these days, and you can get in a lobby pretty quick. I just think that the game, like, going back to what you said about the tools you're given to do the terraforming and the creative side of things, they have the home designer where you can just like come out and like make the changes in your house you want. I would love to see them implement that for the island editing.
Oh, like, absolutely.
Hey, come out, like craft, like maybe draw out the water, like hit the corners to get what you want. I also think it's weird that tiles, like the floor patterns, don't have like straight diagonal angles. They're all like loops. So if you have a trail going this way, it's all just kind of looped on the ends, like the creative tools aren't quite there.
It's the aspect of like, because I'm on the side of enjoying crafting in most games if it's available. Like I usually enjoy it, and I'm really happy to see it here. But it's that same thing of just like, okay, well, why is the inventory not tied to my house? Like in a way, or it is, but why is it not tied to the whole island? Because it's still all the stuff I have or whatever. And like, why can we not? I mean, even down to just like, hey, let me craft more than one thing at a time. Like, why is this the where we put the kibosh? And it's like, nope, one at a time. You need to sit through 4 pages of dialogue every time you make one fish bait. And I know you need to make 200, but we're just doing one at a time. And even more so, and it's not a huge concern because again, it doesn't have to be your focus of the game, but the fact that everything is sort of on a light or high time crunch. It's like, all right, well, these fish are only available at this time. So in this month, you need at least this many baits or whatever to potentially spend this much time fishing and all this. And it just gets extrapolated by the fact that every one of this takes so long to do. And coming again from games where it's like, and again, it's never been Animal Crossing, so it's whatever. But most games at this point are like, do you want to craft 50 of these things? All right, press one button, you can do that, and it's like, all right, great. And it's just odd that's a area they didn't spend more time on, because everything else, the whole package otherwise is really enjoyable, and it's just odd that part is left out for some reason. Yeah, and still not, even with people bringing it up all the time, they're like, you don't really want that.
And of course, these criticisms mean that we hate the game. Just putting that out there.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, I hate it. It's terrible.
Animal Crossing, worst franchise. I would rather they never made another one of these.
I think it's in their best interest to do so.
Yeah,
even with all the money they made off this one. That's the thing, though, is like, I don't think, because in a lot of ways, again, with the way the quarantine happened, for me at least personally, and I feel like others felt the same way, is it's like, when you lost your job, this almost felt like going to work. It's like, all right, well, I'll get up, I'll go do my thing for an hour or two, and then I'll go back to the rest of my day, or I'll clock out and do whatever else. And that was it was perfect at that time, because it's like, all right, at least I have some incentive to wake up before noon, and then I'll do this, and then, have the rest of the day or whatever. And so if the next one doesn't come out with a national or a worldwide pandemic, I can't imagine it sells anywhere near as well as this one did, even though it's a great game, and I think people realize that. It's one of those things where I feel like this is the peak of that franchise, and I don't know that it goes higher than where it's at right now, just due to circumstance.
Yeah. Well, I think this is also Nintendo's answer to the live service, because a lot of companies are chasing that. Nintendo, they have their Nintendo Online, and they add the games to the like fucking emulator like every once in a while. But this one, it's like, okay, we're doing these holidays, we're doing these events, but I think the thing about like games today is you want like the instant gratification of getting to things, and I think a lot of people are getting fed up with the live service, to be honest. Yeah. But Animal Crossing as a game has always been that way. And it's like you wait for these events to happen. You wait for like events.
Yeah.
And you wait for holidays and, you know, friends' birthdays, your birthdays, villagers. But when you're playing a game, you want to be able to say like, okay, I can log in, do absolutely everything I want to. And I think that caught up to people after that initial like month or two of like, okay, yeah, we're still in fall. Okay, we're getting into summer. Okay, oh, we can catch seed creatures. Like, yeah, that's cool. I've done that for a week. Where's the next thing?
Yeah. No, I totally. Well, that's I was actually on that idea recently because I just played through Destroy All Humans remaster that they just put out, and that was the thing of that, and I was like, oh wow, this is a game you can just finish. Like, oh, that's crazy. When was the last game I got that I could just finish? Because it's been like everything is, and it really gave me that feeling of like, I feel like that game specifically is like a very of its era game. Like for whatever reason, that game specifically really encapsulates everything of the PS2 era, at least in a lot, because it's like an action platformer. There's this like, it's got Tude to it or whatever, and then the jokes are kind of that era as well, like which is maybe the weakest part of that game just by virtue of time passing and all that. But it's like there is a very finite thing. It's like there's not a DLC route to take. There's not future updates. There's not. It's like you paid $30, you finish this game, and then you get to move on, which is like surprisingly rare nowadays because it seems like every game has taken the route of let's do this. Like mobile games are making a lot of money. How do we make every game a mobile game somehow?
That's been that's been in the works for a long time. That's
it has,
that was like Dead Space 3 coming out with campaign DLC or some shit, and people were like, what?
Yeah.
Like when it came out, like launch day, people were like, what the fuck? And now today, that's a common thing.
Yeah.
People get used to that.
And it's not, and again, it's like I don't dislike battle passes, like as many of them as there are. I think that those become frustrating because again, they're all time limited, and there's only so many that you can do, and there's so much they like. For example, the one in 76, Fallout 76 was like, that one is impossible to finish. Like they made it to where if you didn't start it the first day it was out, and they've sort of updated and tweaked it a little bit to where it may be easier now. But like initially, if you didn't start that on the day it came out, there was no hope that you were going to finish that thing before it was done. And that's crazy. They're basically saying, we need you, because from what I understand, that's how these games tend to work. It's like, we don't necessarily need you playing all the time, but we need you there every day, at least a little bit. And it's like, and that's the frustrating part of it is like, not everyone is going to be, it's like, as much as I like that game, and despite all of its flaws, it's like, I'm not going to play Fallout 76 every single fucking day. Like no one is going to really do this. And even the insane ones that do are like, it's again, it goes back to Animal Crossing and how the similarities of that game. It's like the end games of both these games are really just like decorate shit. And with the difference being with Animal Crossing is at least everything is just there for you. Fallout, on the other hand, is like, we need you to give us money before we give you back the things we designed in a previous game in this one. Which is like, okay, but then what is the point of me playing this game if it's not to just give you money for things to decorate my home with? Like, what is where am I playing a game at? Because there is no in-game. The social aspects finally got better, but they're still not really where you want for an online, continually online experience. And it's so strange for them to go, for them to keep asking for money for these things that it's just like, this is the only purpose of this game anymore, realistically. And what are we doing? And again, I don't have any issue with people buying cosmetic stuff. I do it. It's whatever. But it feels, in that game specifically, it seems very strange. And I think, again, a testament to Animal Crossing's design. As much as I may not love how slow it takes, at least everything is able for you to get to without doing anything other than just buying that game one time, and then you have everything that's there. So yeah, it's weird. The landscape of games is really strange lately, and it's frustrating because it's hard to. Again, you almost have to pick. And I've never played games like this, and I don't think you have either, where it's like, I never understood somebody's like, oh, they put 12,000 hours into this one video game. That's insane. There are two, and it's not that I almost wish I could have that passion for one single game, but I like so many of them, I feel the need to play all of them. And even the ones I enjoy more than others, I'm like, I can't go through 5 battle passes in these 5 games I really enjoy. There is no, even stuck in quarantine, I don't have the time to do that. When this is the ideal scenario for that to happen, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what they expect.
I felt that way. I booted up Doom Eternal this morning because surprise, Quakecon at Home's happening. And,
right, we should mention, Quakecon is happening currently.
Yeah, it's happening right now in your homes. You may not know it, but that shit is happening right now. And
you're there. You're the BYOC.
Yeah, so and we'll get to that a little later of what they're kind of got going on. But like on the thread of battle passes and progression and talking about these games, like Doom Eternal is one where, like, I played that game very heavily when it came out. Very heavily. Between that and Animal Crossing, it's probably what I played for the most, like, part of 3 months. So I played that, but going back to it after taking a little bit of a break, I'm like, fuck, they did 2 more of these, like, battle pass progression things.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to see those items again. Maybe one day, and then when they're like, okay, hey, we're opening up floodgates on maybe doing microtransactions.
Right.
So who knows? But I think in general, the battle pass model, it's easy, and it's like the lazy man's progression system, in my opinion. Some of them are cool. I've bought into a few of them, like the first Apex one, the Red Dead Redemption one. But then I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna get all these levels, and then I play it for a week, and I'm like, oh shit, something else is out. And like you said, you love games so much, you want to play them as they come out, and that's very hard to do this like these days. Yeah,
and I think pause for just a second. My girlfriend has something's happening again. All right. My girlfriend is definitely afraid of cockroaches, and there was one on the counter. So that was that. Anyway,
about
battle passes. Well, speaking of, because that's something we should mention, I guess, is they finally, almost out of nowhere, released the newest Red Dead battle pass, season 3, I think it is. Which is crazy because it was like 4 or 5 months after the last one without any announcement. It just kind of was like, all right, here's a new class, and then here's this. Which is, I think that with them, because I finished the last one, actually. I think I'd finished it in maybe 2 weeks somehow. What it was, I'd started the collector role and then started the battle pass at the same time. So they were like really synonymously worked really well. And I finished that thing in maybe like 2 weeks, the whole pass or whatever.
Shit. All right.
Which it wasn't bad. I mean, because the collector stuff gives you tons of experience. So it was like, I basically started all 3 roles at the same time. And then, but focused mainly on that one. And I think maybe the hunting one, but it just worked out really well to where it just tied in together. This, however, though, I was looking at it, and I think Rockstar's pricing for this stuff is pretty wild. Like for the battle pass, especially, and then the classes themselves, and then the fact that like I logged in the other day because I saw that announcement. I was like, oh, okay, let me take a look at this. As soon as I logged in, somebody spawned 9 lions on top of me, and then 2 bears, and then I surprisingly killed most of them, but then got killed 3 different times by different lions that kept spawning. Then I got on my horse to ride away, and then someone dropped cages on top of me to where it stuck me in with my horse in a cage I couldn't get out of. which at that point I was able to actually look through the catalog and at the battle pass to see what was actually in it, because before that I was getting it mauled immediately.
Yeah.
But and then so I looked through it and it's like, I think the battle pass itself is $10, and then the roll for this is $20. So or at minimum that. So to get the battle pass and the roll for this character is $30, which is pretty nuts. And then considering my experience with what happened with the game, is it's like, okay, well, you want me to spend $30 on a game where I just got mauled by a hacker immediately, and I haven't been on this game in months, and it's just like you log in and you get attacked. It's like, well, what am I going to give you $30 for? The opportunity to get destroyed by people on your servers that you're not monitoring? Like, well, what is that? Like, that's not. And again, obviously, I can't expect them to be able to catch everything, but it's like that's happened multiple times when I've been in there. It was like two-headed skeletons shooting things at you, and then it was spawning random bandits and all this other stuff. And it's like, all right, guys, well, like, tone down the cost of this if you're going to not, make this accessible in a way for you to actually experience the content you're spending this much money on.
Yeah,
because that's a lot of. I mean, that's a lot of money. Like, to just go, all right, here's for some cosmetics, and here's for another role in our already pretty thin online experience. Here is this. And at least on, like, it going back to, again, Fallout's battle pass, because that one is at least free, which I don't think they have any room to charge people for that stuff, considering how much other stuff they're charging people for. And actually, a quick side note on that too, when you're saying with like the easiest thing for companies to do with these things, that one is maybe one, because that one is like all space themed, right? It's like, enter the cosmos or whatever, or chase this galactic enemy thing. Some of the rewards are like, here's a ghillie suit with some camo on it, and you're like, that's what I think of when I think of space. I think
absolutely
of military army suits where I'm hiding in a bush. Yes, great. And it's like you're like, what? At what meeting were they like, all right, we're gonna do space theme? Like, okay, let me think. He's like, what about a spaceship? He's like, nah. He's like, all right, space helmet. He's like, no. He's like, what about a rocket maybe, or like I don't know, like a moon rock or something for your house? He's like, nah. Somebody's like, I don't know, a ghillie suit. He's like, fuck yeah, that's the one.
Fuck yeah,
fire it up.
My son says Call of Duty has those things.
Well, what I think happened, it makes the most sense to me, is it feels like that was an item designed for nuclear winter, and they were like, oh, you know what? We haven't implemented this yet. Why don't we just throw it in that, and then we'll just call it part of this, one of these 100 levels for this. And it's like, I would rather you cut that down to 50 levels and you give me things that are completely themed for this, rather than here's 100 items of stuff you're never going to really get through, and half of them are hot trash or a reskin of something that you already have.
So
because there's already ghillie suits, there's already camo, there's already other,
Yeah, is there no like retro future space kind of like stuff in that thing at all?
So there is like two outfits, if I remember right, and then the very last reward you get is like a power armor that kind of looks like a spacesuit, which is arguably the coolest item in there, of course. Okay. And they're like, we knew this was going to be, so we put it at the very end of this trail, and dangle that at you. But but again, it goes back to that thing too, where it's like. And again, I can't necessarily get on them too much because it doesn't necessarily make the game easier, and it is a free part of the game. So technically speaking, it's not a paid thing to make you better, but they did include things that it's like an ammo converter, which is like an item that if you miss this, you may potentially never see again.
Yeah.
Which is potentially very beneficial to the game if they fix it, because it's broken in its current state. But
I'm gonna, now that we're talking about this, I see what you're saying, so I'm gonna flip over to look at the rewards.
Yeah.
And it looks like, so you get a player icon, you get a little Vault Tech supply package,
couple of player icons.
The ghillie wood armor paint, that's on there.
You know what I mean? Moon rocks.
Yeah, bow and arrow,
space exploration.
Another ghillie suit.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 ghillie suits. It's not like, it's because they put in like a skin for each type of armor instead of just giving you a suit that you can wear for everything. It's like here, it's attached to each type. So it's like, I need a Marine's ghillie suit. I need this ghillie
Oh
suit. And
my
it's like,
god.
you know what I'm saying?
It's not until rank 100 where you get the even vaguely space themed stuff.
Yeah, there I will give them that there is like a wallpaper and flooring that you get earlier, maybe in the 20s, 10 to 20s that is space themed, and then they give you one a little later, maybe in the 40s that has more like stars attached to whatever the wallpaper
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I see the
But yeah,
wallpaper, the glow in the dark at 56. I see like photo frame. Yeah, this is weird.
yeah,
When
it's
you
strange.
see the art for when you see like the promo art and stuff they're doing for this, it's not what it looks like at all.
No, not at all. And that's the thing is like you're like, okay, this is a great idea, and I'm glad it's free, and that's awesome, and it's a good incentive. But then you look at what you get, and you go, well, why would I do this? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to do all this work to get one item, and it's like, I don't know. And then by virtue of them adding this, they took out the ability to get items easier. So then to spend on their actual single item cosmetics and bundles and stuff in the store, they made those harder to get because they're giving you cosmetic stuff now with this thing.
Yeah.
So and again, the stuff they're putting in the item shop normally looks markedly better and unique compared to all of the stuff you're getting in this thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's free, so you can't they take the ability for you to bitch about it effectively away because like, well, we gave it to you, and it's like, okay, you did, but the incentive to get any of this is so poor that you could have just not and done something else, or again, cut it in half or whatever. But again, the intention is like, we need you here every day, so it's frustrating. It feels almost like the developers of this game wanted to die so they can move on, and I get it.
Yeah.
But it's like fans of the series and stuff you really continually shitting on, and the people that have supported this game specifically, myself included, it's like you have continually dumped on the community. Because if you even go back to the Atom stuff, it's like if you buy a single item or if you buy a bundle, right? And it's like 1,500 atoms, which is the equivalent of maybe I think like around $15, something like that.
Right.
It went for maybe 5 or 6 cosmetic items. What they'll do is they'll add one more item to that bundle and then not discount it, and then it's still $1,500, but you get a new item. You don't retroactively get that if you bought the bundle previously, and the only way to get that single item is to spend another 15 to get 5 items you can't do anything with that you already own, and then one new one. And they don't discount it, and they don't do anything like that. So it's continually this idea of like, give us all this money for nothing while we do nothing. And like, I get it's a small team, I get it's their first time out of the gate, but like, it really just continually feels like we're not listening to any of you, any of your wants or needs, or whatever the community feels like they want. And we're just doing whatever we're being told.
Dude,
with this, and it's
the game
ridiculous.
has NPCs now. That's
you
all
got 2
anybody
hours
wanted.
worth of dialogue content from characters. Like, I'm not saying that the new bases and everything are not like are not worth it, and that's not a lot of work to make all that come together. But it's like the actual content you got. I finished it in like a sitting, and I was like, oh, that was that. Okay, great. And then it's like you get one daily, which I could go on about this for this could be a full episode. Really, is me bitching about this game and the stuff that they. Not even the technical aspects, because that stuff is generally fine, and it has been for most of it. It's just like the inner workings of the systems, because it's okay. Actually, this is what I'll say. This will be the last thing I'll say, I promise. But like, going back to Animal Crossing and comparing it, the other big thing is like everything in Fallout 76 has a cap to it, with the exception of levels, which is another resource effectively, which is the weirdest system I've ever seen in a game, because it's like, every enemy caps at a certain level. Every gun caps at a certain level. Every armor piece also caps. So it's like, you don't get any stronger. You only get the ability to then spend this point to respec yourself, which takes, if you're going to do a full respec, it would take 60 points, which is 60 levels, which is the equivalent to about an hour a level-ish. So it's about 60 hours to change your character to a new spec. And then if you don't like that spec, it's another 60 hours to revert back to a thing. And all in service of one weapon, which isn't necessarily, I don't think it's great, but it's not necessarily bad overall. But there is no respec system or whatever. They give you these cards that you can move around, but only in the limitation of what their special points, which are tied to your level, will allow. which is, again, for a game that's like, if you say you join a group and it's like, oh, this group would be better if we had some kind of healer type. And it's like, okay, well, let me spend 15 minutes putting cards into the area that I can maybe do. And then it's like, all right, or I play with a group for like a month and it's like, oh, they all quit. So it's like, okay, well, now let me respec another 50 hours to get back to my normal build to play by myself and whatever. But it's like, your currency in the game caps, your all of your items cap, your storage caps, your camp caps, everything in that game caps except for the level, which is arguably the only thing in that game that should cap. Yeah. And it's so like, I like the moniker of being like, oh, I'm a level 160 something, which is cool, but you could just have that without all the other stuff with it. Just give us like a respec option or a different loadout or anything else. But it's like, again, it's this idea of wanting you to be there every day, because it's like you can only get X amount of script each day, but you can actually only get this amount in total anyway. And it's like, fuck, man, what am I doing all this for? Because the reward of any of it at the end of the day is not really worth it anyway. Because it's like some of the major plans in that game, like the serums, it's like 2,300 caps, which your cap is 30,000. So it's like I could spend almost my entire bank for one recipe and then have to then go back to working this up, instead of like, hey, let me work up enough to get like one or two of these, or at least not be completely broke when I buy one thing. Yeah. After spending X amount of hours in here or whatever.
I hate when games force that cannot have too much in your storage, like for some arbitrary reason. Like Animal Crossing is a great example. 1,600 items in your storage is your cap, but there's more than 1,600 unique items in that game. So it's like counterintuitive to the point of trying to collect everything. Yeah, and I get you have the shopping and you can reorder, but then you're waiting a day. Like if I'm like, hey, I want to change my like kitchen to be like a birthday party theme, or I want to change like my bedroom to like this arcade theme, but oh fuck, I had a cap of items. I don't have those anymore because I had to sell them, because I'm also stashing 3 of a kind of bugs and fish to give to make a model out of. I fucking hate when games impose storage limitations, but Fallout frames it in a way where it's like, okay, but you can pay more for that, right?
Yeah, well, effectively, you can only pay more for more basically garbage stash. So it's like you can't put items or anything else in there other than just like crafting materials, basically. So it's like your main box still has a limit, and then it's also, when you go back to that, it's like player vending is probably still the most interesting thing they added to that game, or the one that makes you go see other people because you didn't really need to or ever need to before. But then, well, actually, that's another aspect. So I'll get into that next. But yeah, so that's like the only thing that's interesting. But even that is like, if you have an item up for like, say, 10,000 caps or whatever, it's like a really rare gun or whatever. If you're already at your cap limit, they just got that money just disappeared. It's like somebody bought it, then they lost 10,000 caps.
There's no storage in the ATM or anything for that.
No. That money is completely gone. You got none of that. And there's not even, I don't even know, there may be a warning now, but there didn't used to be, so there may still not be. But there's not even a warning to go like, hey, somebody's about to buy this, and you're not going to get anything. So do you want to let them do it? Or do you want to talk to them and say, hey, let's work out a thing real quick. Let me go spin this, whatever. So it's just like there's no mailbox, which would be another huge improvement to that game, to even send stuff to your alts or whatever, because that was well, that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, it's infuriating because, again, it's like this game really, I think, encapsulates more of all of the major issues with the idea of games as a service in sort of one package in a weird way. It's sort of like every negative thing about all those games into one. Because I could point out the nuances of like, Call of Duty's Battle Pass or whatever and all these other ones, but I think that this one is a good example of the worst of all of them, so I don't necessarily need to touch on the other ones.
Dude, I thought it was cool. Like I saw they updated with a Battle Pass system, and I was like, oh, this looks cool. I didn't look into the rewards, but I was like, oh, now I might have a reason to go back to 76, and I talked to my girlfriend about playing it with me again, and we haven't yet. But now looking at this, it's like, I don't want any of this shit.
Yeah. No, you don't. And that's okay. So, and that's the next thing that I was going to say with that is like, So I bought like a year of Fallout first at one point. Like actually at the beginning of the year, I think when Wastelanders came out, some point around there, I was like, they were doing a discount or something, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna get back in, whatever. I'm happy to do it because I would buy Atoms anyway. So with that though, it's like now that they've added this like grouping system, your private server is almost useless because it's like most of these things I could do 10 times faster now with a group that you've implemented a system for than I ever could alone. So it's like, well, my private server is useless. So now I'm again paying money for another thing that is effectively not worth anything anymore. And you're really all you're getting is like, we're giving you an allowance every month for you giving us $100. Like, here's this many atoms to buy a thing each month, but that's it. That's really the thing you're getting anymore is like a discount on that. And that's kind of insane, especially when you see like with Quakecon today, when they showed Elder Scrolls, you're like, oh man, look at all the fun stuff they're doing with their other online game in this similar category of game. Oh, what is this? The 5th expansion? Oh, tight. Look at all that. Vampires? That seems cool. And then they're like, oh, and by the way, and Fallout we're still making it. So thanks guys. And we're like,
I remember like a Fallout MMO has been like always in the pipeline. The original developer Interplay wanted to make one. Mm-hmm. And then like there were buzzings after Fallout 4 that they were going to move into a Fallout like MMO. And it kind of is. Kind of. Yeah. It like has some of those trappings, but it also like and MMOs are a whole other discussion as well, but this is like kind of an amalgamation of not only getting it wrong as far as how to do that Battle Pass service, but also like not trying to build upon the franchise that you're using it for. Like there's no there's a little bit of flavor in there. I played some Fallout 76. I liked it decently enough to want to maybe play it again soon, but as far as what's going on in the game, I have no like real attachment to it, and I can at least say even at Fallout's worst the past, I at least had some sort of investment in it. Yeah. So that's our Fallout 76 talk, I guess.
Yeah, I think we got to move on because I can't. Yeah, I could bitch all day, and we other stuff.
I guess what we could talk about in the thread of like the Battle Pass system is Fall Guys. That was that came out.
Yeah. And, so give me your thoughts on it because I definitely have. Yeah, I think a different opinion. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on it.
I'll give you a minute, okay? Starting now. Okay. So I think Fall Guys is really fun in the sense that I think the Battle Royale genre is getting very, I wouldn't say stagnant, but I would say there's a lot of competition, but not enough gems in the mix to really keep you invested. Like games like Hyperscape came out, Apex Legends, Fortnite. You got I
forgot about Hyperscape. Yeah, that just happened. Yeah,
it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And we can talk about that, but like as far as the Battle Royale genre, I think it's fun to have a game where even if you lose, it's easy to jump into another one sometimes. And sometimes. And then I think that it has a cool aesthetic, like cutesy thing going on, but the overall objective is like a just really fun, non-violent thing. And I'm not one to care about violence, but when you think about video games and Battle Royale as a whole, there's not a whole lot of them doing very much different. A lot of them are here's guns, here's abilities, here's vehicles, here's verticality in the map. But here's a fun game you can play. I will say the criticisms I have probably align with what you said because we talked about it a little bit before. I do like the maps. There's not enough variety, but I think it's a combination of one, they didn't quite tweak maybe an algorithm of saying like, okay, what is the average games that take the count of users, right? What is the percentage of the maps that these total users have played, and how can we make it to where we'll give them fresh experiences? Because when you have 27 maps, you inevitably run into a situation where every other game I was playing, I was like the second round we were doing the egg game. And
I played that one several times.
The egg game, the really fucking frustrating soccer game when your teammates like stand like in front or like by the goal and they kick it in, and then like the one where you're supposed to race the ball down, but people stand in front of the ball, teammates get in the way a lot. That's another criticism that I have.
I think that's one of my biggest ones with the game is that specific that mandatory competitive side of it, because it's the group competitions. I mean, because it's like if you look at old game shows and stuff too, like what was it, like Double Dare or Figure It Out, whatever these games, it's like those were group battles, but that was like with your family. Like, these people, you have some communication with them already. These are like all strangers. You have no idea what they're going to do or what they're doing or whatever. So it's like, even if you're doing exceedingly well, when you get to that point, it's like, all right, well, we just lost the whole game. There goes, 20 minutes or whatever. And then if you don't quickly enough back out, it's like, all right, well, let's load into the next one. You can watch all these strangers do all this stuff again. You're like, oh, all right. It
turns a cute game into a frustrating experience at times. Like, the things that I have said at the screen playing that game, comparing it to Double Dare, if I said those things live on air, I would be arrested. Like, straight up. Like, freedom of speech would be fucked. I would be fucking arrested. Because
especially the amount of times I've said "fuck you" and then little something, because it sounds awful when it comes out of your mouth.
When I yell at Fall Guys, "Fuck you, my shitty son," and it makes no sense, but I'm saying that it's overall fun. I think it definitely has charm. It has like very good potential. I think there is very good potential there. Yeah. I would love to see like a group effort. Like when you're partied with people, you're just playing these games with your party, and then you get grouped in with the team competitions, but there's no real reason to party up other than, hey, we're in the same map with like 60 other people goofing around.
Yeah, I didn't think so. That's what I was wondering, because I didn't get to play any of the group stuff before I had reviewed it, so I was curious to know if that changed anything. My assumption was like, oh, you're in a group, but you're gonna just be, it's the same exact game, you just happen to be co-opted for some reason.
Yeah.
Or you happen to be easier to disconnect from a game now that you're together for some reason.
Yeah.
And I just because that's what I would think is like, if you could, I don't think it necessarily needs private servers, but if you could definitely set up private games where it's like, hey, let's bring in, like, I think of it like for Twitch people, it's like, okay, I'll have 59 subscribers or whatever come in my game with me. That would be an insane amount of fun. Like, because it's like, all right, well, let's have all these people that loosely know me or whatever, and let's do this experience together. But it's the random nature of it, which I totally understand, because it's a battle royale in a sense. But it just doesn't. What should be a really exciting multiplayer game with your buddies becomes this really disconnected, having to be, I don't know, competing with people you don't, which is, again, that's fine, but I don't know, there is a side of that game that needs the privatized group incentive in it to make it like, because I could definitely see me doing that with you guys, your group and our group or whatever. If we had 20 people or whatever in a group doing this, that would be a shit ton of fun. But having it just be this experience as it sits right now, it's really strange to me. And I think a lot of it too comes down to the controls not feeling super tight and being pretty limited, because it's only a 3-button game. You have jump, dive, and a combination of jump and dive, and then grab, and that's like it. So a lot of situations I find, if you just had a dash or like a very quick sprint, would really change like the entire format of this game, because you could, jolt out of someone grabbing you or whatever, or juke out of just something to make the maneuverability more exciting would really add to that experience, I think, quite a bit. But and I think it has potential. It's one of those games where I really like the concept more than I love the execution of it. But that's not to say it doesn't have room to grow. I think the big issue for me with that is like, I worry one, because the way the game is set up is it looks very much like it's free to play already, and I worry that is their intention, is sort of covering up the simplicity of the game with like bright colors and all these unlocks and stuff, instead of focusing more on like the actual competitive aspect of the game. And I worry that just here shortly it's gonna, because they they could just flip a switch and go, it's free now, and the game would look no different. So it's like I really
yeah, because you're still buying the currencies. You're still buying like you still have that battle pass progression,
which is free. We'll mention with the game,
yeah,
the first one anyway. I don't know if that's going to stay that way, but
the store rotates, and you have those like purple coins, and you can spend on like random items you get in the store. Those are based on like how far you get like in the rounds, and you also have a crown, which is a currency that you get in the battle pass progression, but you also get for winning. So and that's like for the legendary gear and stuff in the game.
I think I'll say real quick on the currency thing too. I think one thing they've done that I don't like the way it's set up is it's just like if you look at the currency in the game engine itself, there's no pricing for anything. You have to click on it and then it immediately pulls your cart up with it in it already and then shows you the price, which I've seen a few other games do this, but I think it's a really kind of shady way to do it because it's just like you click on the thing and it's like I don't know how much this is and it's like I want 500 coins, that's great, I'll buy that, or I'll look at that and then it's like okay, $10 right now, you're good, and I'm like well hold on, I would rather just give me be more transparent with your pricing metric from the get-go instead of I shouldn't have to pull up a second menu, especially not a shopping cart with an item already in it to give me what this costs. Like if you're at a store, you don't pick up a box of cereal and go, I want this cereal. I guess I'll figure out what it costs when I get there. It's like, no, give me that now.
Yeah.
And again, it's a minor thing, but I don't know. Again, it's just a weird. It's more of a tactic I see in other free to play, more kind of shady mobile games, especially. They do this thing, so it's like, it's just I don't know. It's a little uncomfortable because I think that. In a way, it feels like we're getting as much money as we can right now, and then we're switching this to free to play. We're getting as much money out of that as we can for, again, a game that has a lot of potential, but as it sits, feels very basic. And I feel like I wish there was more to it than there is, because it's weird to. Again, last thing I'll say before I keep interrupting, but I guess it's
all good.
When you're labeling a game as a competition, it doesn't feel like you have much control of your self in the competition. It's like by the amount of the way that you get bumped around and the limited movement you have or whatever, you don't really feel like you're competing. It sort of feels more or less like, well, hopefully if the stars align, I'll get it this time. And especially when you get the group competition in, it's like even if the planets all did line up, when you get to there, they could all just fall out of sync because your team is doing whatever. So
there is that luck involved in it, and that is one thing that I have been kind of screwed by in the game at times. But overall, I like it. Small dev team, so kudos to them. I think they made something that caught them by surprise with the server issues. A lot of that's
totally get that. Yeah,
a lot of that's been ironed out, and these are just. It's a small team, and I'm in a Facebook group for another gaming website, and there was a dev for the game in there, and they were just talking about their process, and it's close net enough to where, and small enough to where you can kind of get a glimpse of what they were doing and their process, and
I haven't looked too much into it. Have they said what they plan to do going forward, what their initial roadmap is?
There's no real roadmap. They did a Q&A on Reddit. I'm pretty sure they did I think they did an. Hold on, I can pull that up. But they kind of talked about a variety of maps they wanted to do, game modes. They kind of touched on let me see if I can pull up a couple of the top questions.
Sure.
So, in here, why did you choose to release on PlayStation Plus? I don't really care. Well, I care. It's interesting stuff. It's just not what I'm looking for.
Honestly,
right now.
This is one of those things I wish they didn't have an exclusive with them, and I wish it would have came out on Game Pass. If it would have been on Game Pass for PC or whatever, perfect game for this. Because if I didn't have the $20 entry fee, I would be more than happy to play more of this game. But it's that limited review or return window with all this stuff, and it's I don't know. I don't know that it's as cool as it is. I think it really should have just been free to play, and then you buy in whatever else. I mean, obviously it did well for them because last time I looked, there was 70,000 people playing it currently on Steam. So as far as that goes, it seems like it's working. I just yeah, I think for overall it would be better if it wasn't that, I guess. I don't know. I guess the pricing metric is just it feels a little thin for what, or a little expensive for what is there, even though it's still only 20. That still seems kind of steep for the content, because there's no, I guess we'll mention too, there's no single player in the game. There's no like training mode there. It's only this competition. That's it. There's and you can group, but again, it's the same competition. So you're only paying for your ability to compete with others, and in these semi-random game types, and that's it. So that's yeah, maybe a bigger criticism I might have is that.
Yeah, that is one thing they address here. They're talking about the question is, how do you plan on giving this game longevity and making people come back to the game after the initial hype and it inevitably subsides? Looking forward to the release, blah, blah, blah. We plan on adding some variation to the levels, so hoping more unexpected stuff will hopefully get things fresh. We're also going to be dropping new maps for existing round types, and we're looking to consistently add our round types and mechanics, or consistently adding to those mechanics. So
yeah,
it seems like they do want to improve on some of the stuff. Some of the criticisms that came out of the gate, I think they've taken to heart. And will there be any way to queue with friends? Oh, this is like before launch.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah. So future levels, we have loads. They also talk about maybe doing some seasonal content in here, so like some maybe winter maps or stuff like that.
Oh, that could be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we'll check back in on that occasionally. I'll still be playing it with some friends, but
yeah,
I did have one more game that I can talk about, and then I'll let you finish out what you've been playing.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And I could talk about this forever, and I might make like a different video on my channel, the Dudley Robot on YouTube.
Okay, yeah.
I'll probably make a different video just talking about my thoughts on it, but Death Stranding.
Oh, yeah, okay. I have also been playing that a bit.
Yeah. So I missed the boat on PS4 because one, I actually was not very interested in it. Just to be honest, not like super into it. But because I never really had a relationship with Hideo Kojima games. I just didn't.
Me either, yeah.
I played like Metal Gear Solid a little bit when I was younger, the Twin Snakes remake on the GameCube of the first game. And then I played Phantom Pain. I played a lot of Phantom Pain. But you're able to kind of separate yourself from the franchise with that game because it's really just like a reinvention of like the stealth and action mechanics of Metal Gear leading to that point. Death Stranding is another thing entirely, man.
Yeah, I've tried to describe it to people as like it's like a pseudo BioShock story esque thing where you don't tell the story from a gun, you tell it through package delivery. Like it's like the narrative is brought, which I think is what throws a lot of people off. Is like, well, if you're telling a video game story, I need to have a gun, and it's like, well, you don't necessarily, but
you do at some point.
You do at some point. Yeah, you do.
They're like, hey, we know you love guns in video games.
We know you need them. Yeah.
Here's these fucking guns. Please love our game, America.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So
how far in are you? How much have you played of it?
I beat it.
Oh, you finished it.
I finished it. I was gripped by that game more than I thought I was. And the reason why I even got it is because, well, one, it came out on PC. Yeah. It used some new like NVIDIA technology that looked pretty cool that I wanted to try.
Are you talking about the DLSS stuff?
Yeah. Technically, it's really impressive stuff. The game itself is like very well made for like what is seemingly like, or what Kojima presented as a very small team, but then the credits roll for like 20 minutes.
Right.
So it's like the most like expensive company backed, publisher backed, Sony backed indie game that I've ever played. It's
that's fair to say.
Yeah,
I think because I've enjoyed my time with it so far. I have definitely not finished it. I think I got to the after the first, I guess, boss, you would say, after you take the boat over to
shit. Yeah,
I'm a ways
Fort Knot City.
Yeah, Fort Knot City. Yeah, after you go to that, and then I've done another. I've connected probably 15 hubs to that one. So I'm working. I think I'm fairly close to either moving on to the next area or some other story beat happening.
Yeah, if you
But
haven't
yeah,
hit a story beat like in a minute, then there's some I
actually,
don't want to. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to think. The last thing I did was there was a guy that ran a junkyard, and I had to go pick up shit for him in this like a town that's like completely overran with the symbiotes or whatever. I can't remember the name of them now.
And then you come back and he's like, "Fuck you! You killed my girlfriend." Like, did you get to that part?
Yeah. And then I think it's the one after that where you then have to, because I think that happens first, or something. Yeah, there's some narrative with his girlfriend, but then yeah, you have to go get these packages. And I thought you just get one form, but it's like, no, I need like 50 grams of this or whatever. So you have to get like several boxes and then destroy them or something there. After I realized there was more than one box, I was like, I think I'm gonna take a break, and then kind of got out for a bit. So I haven't checked, because then after that, I think Grounded came out, and then I've spent the majority of my time with that game.
I'll say this. I'm not going to say the game is like artistically perfect. The game,
sure,
the game has like a way. It's up its own ass in a way that apparently only Hideo Kojima can do. I don't have much experience with those games, but like I know about the quiet scenes in Phantom Pain, and like some of the like the whole opening intro to that game was like an hour and a half of like just like trying to be as cinematic and as artistic as possible, and it's ambitious and cool. But it doesn't always translate to good writing. The story has a way of getting in its own way, but I do like the characters of the game. Yeah. And I liken it to a lot of like movies and TV shows I've seen where like the overarching narrative isn't that great, but I do like the people in the show. That's where I fall with Death Stranding. Norman Reedus is like a blank slate, and you could replace him with literally anybody. He could be Tom Hanks, and it would be the same performance. It would be the same beats. So he's like the blank slate, but he's kind of that way in like Walking Dead. So whatever.
Yeah, I've not seen that either. I assume that. I mean, that was kind of the case that what I was coming to is every time I'd be like, "We got to do this mission." He's like, "No, I don't want to fucking do that." And you're like, "Well,
fuck you guys.
You gotta do it." He's like, "Fuck, I'll do it." And you're like, "Oh, all right, Norman." And then you'd have someone tell you what you're doing, and then whatever Skullface would come up, and he's like, "Hey, did you hear what he just said?" All right, I'm going to tell you what he just said again. So what you're going to do is that you're like, all right, Skullface, dude, he just said it. Yeah. Let me go. I got it. And he's like, all right, just making sure I need to keep looking like I'm working. I'll see you later. Hey, did you know the president was dead? All right, I'll see you later. And you're like, all right, man. Yeah, all right. That was your mom, by the way. Did you know that? I was like, yeah, I did. I did actually know that.
Yeah, that woman, Fragile, that you're hanging out with. Like,
oh, Fragile, yeah.
That whole thing, there is some very on-the-nose, weird dialogue in the game that I fucking couldn't stand when they said it. You've heard about the famous, like the infamous thing that they say at the end of the game, right? Like,
no. I kept actually I almost don't want to know, because I had kept myself completely blind to this game.
Yeah.
Until it hit PC, and then I touched it. Like, so I sort of saw what the game was, and then enough to go, okay, I would play that, and then that's all. So I don't know anything else about it.
I recommend it. I highly recommend somebody play this game, finish it, because it is a wildly unique game. I've never played anything like it. It is a mix of like 70% cathartic, just environmental, move through these like locations, take it all in. The low roar soundtrack in the background when you're doing some things is amazing.
That's fantastic. I ended up getting those albums after that, because the first couple I listened to, I was like, oh, I'd listen to this. And that was maybe so far that's been my best takeaway. I was like, this is a good album.
Dude, and the official soundtrack with like the actual artists on it is good. Like I will say, too, like this dude has good taste in music. I can safely say this. So
I thought it was really crazy that Churches had a song for this. They do the title track to this game. Right. I thought that was really wild when I found that out. I mean, again, this is probably old news to most everyone else, but as people that on the PC, it was really interesting to find that out.
So I do recommend playing it just for the fact alone it's unique. If you hate it people hate when people say this in reviews, like, if I play the first hour and it's not fun in the first hour, I'm returning the motherfucker. I get it. If that's how you want to play it, play it. But I highly recommend get like 10 hours. 10 hours. Yeah. There's a lot of stupid ass weird shit happening. 2 hours though. Give it just that amount of time, and you'll eventually find a game that like slowly delves out really interesting mechanics, ways that you can get around like the frustrating traversal of the terrain, some really actually cool story beats and moments, some cool characters. I really liked Heartman. I liked the scene with Die Hard Man, like at the end that everybody talks about, but you had to get there.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah, with
oh, no.
and Guillermo del Toro's Dead Man. That shit's cool. Like this,
yeah, that was surprising. I thought he was gonna be like a cameo or like a little side beat. I had no idea he was like your guide, basically. For at least
cool,
so far,
man.
what I played, he's effectively your guide.
And the BB was real cool. I loved the BB.
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah.
Everybody was like, "What the fuck is this?" But like the BB has like a personality, and they get into that in the story. That part of the story I really liked. Like, why do they exist? Yeah. What do they do? That is the cool part to me. Like that baby science stuff.
I thought that was super interesting, especially the way they treated it. Like even in the story beats, like in the text and the emails and stuff, where they're just like, I know I'm not supposed to get attached to this thing. I know it's just a piece of equipment, but I'm starting to have feelings for this thing or whatever. And they know that my superiors tell me not to or whatever. And you're just like, yeah, I mean, how would you not get somewhat attached to a fetus that you're like connecting with in some way?
Yeah.
And it's that part is super. I agree with you. I mean, I think it is like if you're just a fan, like if you enjoy video games as a whole, I think it's really worth trying because it again, just to reiterate what you said, is like it's so interesting what someone had tried to put together and the amount of money that they put to this idea. And I think if you're just getting to it now, especially with the pandemic stuff that has happened, the game starts to make more sense out of the gate than I think it would have otherwise, because there's a sort of this beginning stages of like, oh yeah, I get it. Okay, everyone is sort of disconnected, and yeah, we are sort of relying on Amazon to get most of our stuff at this point, or whatever. Or at least you've now experienced a world that's somewhat similar to this one enough to go, oh, I can put myself here now instead of this whole like completely detached thing. And I guess that's another big thing to comment on too, is like the way multiplayer is implemented in that game is really interesting. Like it is super neat the way that it's like, it's like you're all. Because I think actually that's another thing is like in so many games, it's like especially like World of Warcraft, you take it, it's like it's like, all right, hero, welcome hero, you're the last hero of the world. And I was like, is it really? Because there's like 900 dudes talking to you when I walked up, and they're all the hero. So are you sure that we're the hero? And in this one, it's like everyone is Norman Reedus, but it really feels like you're only Norman Reedus and everyone else is just a delivery person also, which I think is super interesting that they made that work, and that it does feel like you are a part of a delivery company of everyone. You still feel like the main character, but there's still the semblance of that there's all these other people playing this game by virtue of you helping build roads or lost packages or whatever else. But it's crazy how you could tell a story that's so integral with multiplayer while not ever seeing anyone else, but all of you experiencing the same work that someone has done, or them helping you or something like that. And it's really, that part to me was like the most interesting. I was like, wow, this is just dynamic in a way I'd never considered a game to be. And it's really, it's quite an achievement, I think, for that portion of it. It's like, because once whatever team or group or however the servers worked or whatever, once we built a highway, I was like, oh, fuck yeah. Like I can just take this motorcycle and book it to where I need to go and don't have to deal with any of the environmental stuff, which I don't dislike that stuff to some extent. But at a time, you're just like, I really just want to get back to this thing so I can keep the story going. So it's like having this highway built to make all that possible is super interesting. And yeah, and then the like little emotes or emojis or whatever that's like good job, or ones that like pump up your baby because that you saw those, and just like there's all these neat little things. And to see where people put these too in certain areas, it's like, hey, look, this mountain really sucked. I got up here. Great job that you got up here also. And it's like, oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's just, there's no, I've never had an online game integrated this way where you felt so connected to people you never see. It's and where you still feel very unique in this world is quite an achievement outside of everything else with the game. It's really interesting.
I like what you said about World of Warcraft earlier, because I would love to see, and there are these sandbox MMO type games, like you got the Arcade games, you got Ultima Online, where like you as a character in a guild you can get like plots of land, and like Final Fantasy Online has this to an extent with player housing, but that's like in these like weird like seeds, and they're like sectioned off, and like if you wanted to explore them piece by piece you could, but they're not a part of the real world. So if you never focus on that stuff, you'll never see it. That's the thing I would love to see like MMOs start trying to implement, is like ways that the world can not only can like the characters interface with the world, but the world can change. And like you can build these structures, you can build like these cities, you can like
that was Star Wars Galaxies.
That's what I'm saying, man.
They had whole cities built by people in that game, which was super interesting to see.
So it's like some of these older school type video games like had those like functions, but I don't think like today modern like MMOs have had like framework. And I hope that Death Stranding, people pay attention to those little nuances as far as like how the multiplayer was implemented, and how you interface with other players without ever actually seeing anybody, but make that like integral to other things, because it does have really smart ideas. I think that game has really, really smart ideas. Not like we said, not like unapproached territory. Plenty of games have like done stuff like this, but this feels like an amalgamation of a lot of that put together.
Yeah, it's the way they get to implementing the same things other games have done. It's just the angle they took to get to all of it is super unique, and it's really interesting. I feel like too, if this game would have had, I don't know that it necessarily needed, because I think the game itself is still solid, but I feel like if it would have had maybe another year of working out some of the kinks and animation stuff, then this package would be really like something. I mean, it's special already, but I think if they would have had just a bit more time to really fine tune everything in there, because sometimes like driving the motorcycle over terrain can be a fucking pain in the ass, and it's not even because you're driving poorly or because you're trying to game the system or whatever. Some terrain just doesn't work like the way that you need it to, and those are all technical aspects. That doesn't really take away from the experience, I think, overall. But there is some things that could make that package a bit tighter. But overall, yeah, like yours, I mean, I still recommend at least seeing it, because it's because who knows if there'll be another one like it. And even if there is, it's almost like they're on the heels of this. So it's like it's sort of one of those monumental timepieces of a game where you're just like, wow, that's something crazy that somebody did, and the funding behind it and everything else.
So I highly recommend people go play that game. You should definitely beat it. I want to talk about like the story aspects of that game. It actually, so I made the point of saying that I've never played a Hideo Kojima game. So what I'm working on now is I'm going to play pretty much every Metal Gear game from GS1 onward.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be a big feat. So I started playing the first game. I'm like, probably, I beat Revolver Ocelot, so I've never played it. It's cool. I'll have more thoughts. Like, I'll probably have that game beat next week, and then we can talk a little bit about that in our games. But expect to hear a little bit more about MGS for me as time goes on.
Fair enough, yeah.
So
I'll say, I guess, quickly touch, just because it's made on the same engine, but Horizon Zero Dawn it uses the same engine that more or less Death Stranding used the same engine that Horizon was built on, the Grill engine, and that came out on PC today. And so I've got to, I only really got to play it. I played it on PlayStation 4. That was like, at the time I bought a PS4 just to play that game, because it looked like, I thought it would be more of a Monster Hunter type game, and I was like, oh, I want that. But I ended up loving it for different reasons, I think. So now that it's on PC, I got that. So I won't talk really anything about the story and stuff, because I haven't relived it yet. But it does have some very strange performance issues. I think a lot of it will come down to NVIDIA didn't release a driver today for that game. Usually on major releases, they'll put out some kind of update to, better fine tune certain games. But yeah, there's some. I honestly have not seen a stutter like it. It's a very interesting, like, I wish I could recreate it in some way, but it's like a very, it's not jaunting, but there's just like this weird, like, pull back stutter to the movement in some areas. Like, it doesn't feel very smooth. And I think it might be by virtue of it going from either a locked 30 frames to now being up to 120, I think is the cap it lets you use. Even though it'll let you implement like whatever your refresh rate is, 144 or whatever else. But yeah, It's I don't know. There's some technical aspects to it that are odd because I would have assumed if they were in I would have seen them in Death Stranding if they were not in this game also they would have had similar issues. One because Death Stranding had less time to cook for the PC port than this did.
Yeah.
So it's a bit odd. And I've noticed too that it's almost the errors I was seeing with people reporting online were almost only folks with higher end cards. It was like 2080s, 2070s, 2080 Ti, stuff like that, which is what I have as well. I've seen those issues. So it's really weird that the higher end systems were for whatever reason having an issue, which is odd.
Yeah, that doesn't normally happen like that.
No, it's usually lesser stuff that they can't run or whatever. But this was more like it's almost like you're outputting more because again on the PS4 it runs I think at a lock 30. I played it on the PS4 Pro originally, so I think it was a lock 30 at 4K, and I always do the value performance over quality, which maybe I should switch to that on here because I actually was playing it with the value quality over performance, so maybe that'll change. I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a good heap of options for PC stuff, but yeah, I'll have to get in more to play it. But I just want to quickly note that was released today. I think it's $50. I want to say 49 on Steam, but worth playing in any capacity. But maybe wait a little bit and see if they patch something in there. So
yeah, like real quick, I tried to play it on PS4. Couldn't really get into it at the time because I think at that time, like a lot of games were open world, and I was just kind of like, it came out right around the same time as Breath of the Wild. Like, let's be real.
Oh, so, like, yeah, it did. That's right. Yeah, it did.
So I played Breath of the Wild, and then I'm like, I really don't want to play another open world game for now. And then like time just got away from me. I tried it out, wasn't too interested, but I think eventually I'll get it on the PC once some of the issues are ironed out, and I think I'll get into it.
I say wait on a sale because you can get the PS4 version for like $10, like a complete edition. So I would say wait for a sale for this one just to I think it's definitely worth playing through. I will say it does start a little slow because you start out as a child and that takes a little bit to tutorialize and get you through that. And then you get into the actual game itself. But the mechanics of it are very interesting because it's more of like, I mean, it's an open world game. You're checking off boxes. You're finding camps and stuff to overtake and all that. But the machines themselves are nice. The world environments are very pretty. The art design of that game is probably its highlight, and I think the story is really good too overall. Which I won't go to that since you haven't played it, but it's I think like I said, I'd wait if it's like at $25. Yeah, it's perfect. I think it's definitely worth that for where we're at now. But yeah,
cool. So I guess before we get into news, did you want to touch on anything else you might have been playing?
I'll say quickly, Undermine got out of early access today. It's a top-down roguelike game. I won't go too far into that. It's good. I have a review up on my page, but it's a very short one. I think if you're a fan of roguelikes, I think it's worth getting. It's one that did, I'd say the highlight of it, outside of the game itself, is it's a company that did early access super well, where they basically had it's similar to like Dead Cells or something else, where they had the core mechanics of the game and then most of the big ideas of the world fleshed out already, and then they just added to stuff until they were like, all right, this is a full package, here you go, and we're going to keep adding stuff to it, which is I think what has happened with early access really is it's like it went from like Kickstarter, everyone going like, we don't want to give money to Kickstarter games unless it's by a full company, because it was like a bunch of people going, I've got this great idea for a game and I don't know how the fuck to make games, so here, give me money and I'll figure out how to make a game. And it's either And now I think all of that has shifted to Steam, where it's like either you get an early access game that's really well done, or it's one that's like, I can model a character and here's a floor tile and they fight each other, so that's my game if you want to give me $14 right now. Yeah. And I just have to more comment that they did it well, and I really like the game. I think it's a good roguelike as far as those go.
Yeah, I got the trailer playing on screen right now. It looks like it kind of has like that Binding of Isaac, like, isometric kind of thing going on.
Well, and it's room based as well. So like you'll go into a room, the doors will lock, you have to kill every enemy, and then they'll open up, and you can kind of take your path from there. And it has a little bit, sort of, I guess, is somewhat of a Spelunky vibe, in the sense that there's a lot of like secret areas and stuff only accessible with bombs and opening passages and whatnot. But there'll be, there's also, you have this familiar system, which is like your little pet that'll come on runs with you, and you'll unlock more of those. But they have like one shoots like fireballs whenever you throw your pickaxe at them, and then you have one, and that by virtue will increase your fire damage if you happen to find, I think it's like a lizard's tail or some other fire items. But yeah, it's basically, and it's sort of similar to Rogue Legacy, where it's like you die, you get a new miner. They don't have. I wish it was maybe a little more like that game where you had like a more randomized set of stats or whatever. Although Rogue Legacy, that's sort of its biggest feature, where it's like, oh, you're a family member. This one is nearsighted, so everything is really tiny or whatever. Or you have like a small window to see stuff in. But there is some variation with like blessings and stuff that you get later on, and then you can upgrade yourself overall, just like at most roguelikes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Actually, another one I've been playing is called I, Dracula Genesis, which is another one that just came into early access. And that game is also really good. They're pretty similar in the way that they play out. The more interesting issue or aspect of I, Dracula, which is I think it's a terrible name, but I think the game itself is really good. But in that one, the way that items happen is like an item will drop, but it'll have a question mark on it. And if you choose to get it, it'll take you to an arena where it'll give you that weapon, and then you'll have to survive the enemies that come after it. And then you get that unlocked to show up in the other runs that you do while you keep going, which is super neat. And there's apparently like 1,200 or so items in the game already, even though it's in early access, but there's a shit ton.
I actually really like the way this game looks.
It's cool, man. It's really cool. Like I kind of grabbed it on a whim, but I just kept hearing the reviews and stuff seem really positive about it, so I just kind of was like, all right, well, I've been looking for another roguelike because it's sort of become my favorite genre by virtue of just always being different. And it's a good one. I'd say there's also different characters in that one too. There's I think there's slots for maybe like 15 characters. I think there's only 4 in there right now. But they all play pretty differently. Like one has like a jump or a double jump, and one has only his dodge mechanic is just a dodge. And then there's another one that's like all their life and magic are limited. But yeah, that game is really good about you continually getting just like either new items completely or like new slots for items. It'll be like, all right, here's now you've unlocked your first ability slot. Now here's your second ability. Now here's like 50 different items that can go into that ability. And then here's your slot for alien technology. And then here's as you level up in that game, you'll also get like per run, you'll level up to where you're able to carry more guns. So it'll be like first you'll have one like starter weapon, and then you'll able to pick up your first gun, and then so on and so forth. And then it'll be like, now here's your like science gun, which uses your mana to use it. And then like there's always like some hitting that part of your brain that's just like, ooh, I got something out. Ooh, there's something out. Ooh, I wonder what this does. Like that is continually happening in this game, and I think they do a really good job with just bringing that stuff in.
Yeah.
And it has one of my favorite things that roguelikes always miss is the ability to recycle stuff. So it's like, if I don't like this, at least there's money coming in so I can use it for something else or whatever. Because some runs like just don't work or some items just don't work towards the build you're trying to make for your run or whatever. And so the ability to sort of at least get something instead of having wasted items is cool.
Yeah. We should have
and there's
episode.
A boss on every stage, I think, too. There's like oh yeah, that's what it is. The difficulty you'll unlock different difficulty modes. I think there's 4 of them, and I've unlocked up to the 3rd one. And so it'll be like the final boss will change to where it's like you're doing which I think is Dracula, but there's like different bosses and stages to the boss. The farther you get in that, it'll be like you'll go through like 4 or 5 worlds, then you'll get to the boss, which each of those has a boss at them all. I don't know. It's hard. There's a lot going on in that game for what it is, but it's totally worth playing. It looks
cool.
It's a great one.
We should have a day where we kind of talk about some interesting roguelikes, because there's an endless sea of them, and I know that you are a pretty like heavy connoisseur in the genre. Because as far as I know,
I think it's my favorite genre so far.
I would love to talk more about Hades. I don't think we have room today. But
oh man, that's another great one. Yeah, Hades is fantastic. And another company that handled early access exceedingly well.
Yes.
Same idea. Like the foundation was there and the mechanics were all there. and then how do we expand on that? And they've done an incredible job.
Supergiant's great, man. I wish I liked their games more than I do, but I love Hades. Like, Hades is one I think that's gripped me the most out of all their games.
Yeah, well, and their ability to actually throw a narrative into a roguelike is hard to do because everything is supposed to be so random. They still were able to go, well, here's an overarching story that's happening.
Yeah, we'll talk about some roguelikes again some other day.
Actually, I'll quickly note Risk of Rain 2, I think, releases in 1.0 next week. I think that's
really? That's another game I haven't played a whole lot recently.
Let me look at that real quick. Yeah, but I think it's either August 11th or September 11th. It probably isn't September 11th for obvious reasons, but we'll see.
I mean,
maybe we're far past that. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore.
I think it's time to make it a national holiday. Maybe it's time.
Yeah, we're excited to announce launching 1.0 version of Risk of Rain 2 on August 11th. So yeah, next week.
That's are they releasing with any new characters? Because I know that.
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's going to be. They outline it on the Steam page, but I think they're adding more. What did it say? I looked at this the other day. I think they touched up a lot of different items and sort of fine-tuned some stuff there, and to make runs a little bit more coherent, I guess, with builds you're trying to do.
Apparently, that 1.0 launch is only happening on PC.
Yeah, we've been getting all the updates of this game first. They've came to PC and then they get filtered to console.
Well, it looks like like the console is up to date to now. They have the artifacts. I should probably just put this on my screen. So they released the artifacts update. That was the last one I knew about and played a little bit of. And then they're doing the 1.0 launch for PC.
Yeah.
And then
it'll be new survivor, final stage, final boss, new items, equipment, and more. So
yeah, and they're bringing that to consoles in like a unknown like fall window. So
I think it's been usually like a month or two after, or maybe a little less, depending upon the size of the update itself. So I imagine it won't be too far off for you guys as well. So
yeah, I'd love to talk about that game when it hits 1.0 too.
Yeah, I'll happily revisit that game. That's one of that first one was one of my favorite Actually, that I think might be the first roguelike I played, Risk of Rain 1, and that really spawned my love of this. And then the second one is we can get into it more later. But that second one's a great game. If you got time, you should play that game.
For sure. So I think you want to get into news after maybe a little break.
Yeah, I guess I'll quickly touch on one very last thing because it's been the only thing I've really played, which is Grounded.
Okay.
But I think let's take a quick break. I'll talk more about that when we get back, and then we'll move into news.
Okay, sounds good, man. Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're gonna talk about some things that happened this week. Some things that happened this morning, in fact.
Yeah, bit of news. Yeah,
just a little bit. You know, gaming news. It's something that people do for a living.
Can you
believe it or not? I just can't believe that concept. Video games.
Yeah,
what a big fucking problem.
People are going to catch the net sometime soon, and they're going to really like them.
I think so. I think so. Like Pokemon cards are not going to get confiscated in schools anymore. It's going to be commonplace to wear a VR headset in public while walking. Can't wait for that. Yeah. Well,
it'll just have like a backup camera like cars have now, but it'll just be the whole. So you can just get a little peripheral, so you know where you're headed. But that's all you need.
The fucking future is perfect, man. Like, I can't believe it, and we're already there. Like,
it's pretty good. I gotta say, I mean, that first stimulus check that hit, I was like, well, I mean, an index isn't too expensive. It's only this whole check. It's only this whole amount.
I could use food, or I could eat virtual food.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know about that. They're like, well, there's a Half-Life 3 kind of now. Also, what about that? And I was like, well, you know what? Oh, and it's free, so I saved $60 when I spent $1,000. Okay, well, pretty good. Actually, what's really crazy about the Valve Index, this is not necessarily news, but what's really crazy about that is a week that Sea of Thieves came out, that game had, I think it was somewhere in the 68,000 player mark on Steam only. And the Valve Index was above that as far as best sellers. So that meant effectively that this thing was selling 68,000+ units.
Or they rigged the system.
So I thought that, but it did move down the list later. So it was then like third or something. It was between that and yeah, it was between Sea of Thieves and what was the other one? There's another game that came out that week or whatever, but that one was like 8,000 or whatever. And then at that time on Steam, Sea of Thieves was at 38,000 current players or whatever. Obviously, that doesn't reflect overall sales, but it was somewhere even on that level. It was somewhere between 10,000 and like 30,000 units sold when it was between those two, or so, that were just purchased or something like that, which is crazy to me. That like that was it was really mind-blowing. But again, I have no actual numbers. It was all speculation, but from what I was seeing, I was like, man, this thing must be.
Did that correlate with the first stimulus check? Was that like right around then?
It was somewhat similar. Yeah, hold on. When did, let me see when Sea of Thieves hit PC, because that'll give me that week.
I know there was a supply issue because a friend of mine like had to get on a waiting list just to get the Knuckles.
Yeah, I still don't think they're sent out. I think these were still somewhat of a pre-order.
Okay. Yeah, he ended up getting the Vive Cosmos, and they're pretty cool. He brings them over. We fuck around with it. But those Knuckles, man, like that headset with the Knuckles would be perfect.
Oh yeah.
It just seems like really cool tech. I've watched a lot about it. I like it a lot. But yeah, what'd you find?
June 3rd. So that would be we had March, April, May, June. So it was early June. So yeah, it was like kind of in that same wheelhouse. It was probably long enough for them to get it and go, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah. They were waiting for that opportunity.
It was either the opportunity to go, am I going back to work? I am. All right. Well then, I think it's time. And then grab that. So yeah, it seems like it might correlate a little bit. It's hard to say, but
what a wild world.
Yeah.
People are just blowing the money that is supposed to be for food on Vives. Cause I would do it. I would do it 100%.
You know, inflate the economy a bit. So if we're supposed to be spending, so that's the idea, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's
no
other issue.
So I guess we'll roll right into it. QuakeCon is this weekend, and with QuakeCon, a bunch of cool stuff is happening. And basically, this morning they announced some pretty neat stuff going on with a couple games. Just to get the small stuff out of the way, they showed a little bit more of Deathloop from Arcane Studios. That game looks really
for my taste, but they did show a bit more of it. I wanted some more because it's out at the end of the year, so we're not like far off from that one.
Yeah, I will say, of like all the games they showed, even the existing games, well, I would say the newer games, like as far as style goes, like I think that like some of these games coming up are some of the like neatest like looking games that I've seen in a while out of like the Bethesda like group, like their whole clan of like developers.
Yeah.
Like Ghostwire Tokyo.
Good aesthetic, I think. And Ghostwire especially looks really interesting.
Yeah.
At least from an aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah, Deathloop, it looks like it kind of has some of that stuff going on with the... Let me just pull up some video content about it.
I'm curious to see how the multiplayer in that game plays out, because it seems like it's supposed to be a major component of having someone else be your rival. And I'm curious to see how that is actually implemented and how that affects your actual playthrough of that game.
Yeah, so they didn't give too many new details at all. They just kind of talked about the multiplayer thing, and right now the trailer from the PlayStation event a while ago is playing. So this is kind of the game in a sense. It has a neat style. It looks like it's borrowing a lot from the Dishonored games as far as like the teleport you have, some of the like gunplay.
Yeah, it looks like it feels like that, or Prey. I mean, Prey was pretty similar in that regard too. I think maybe that one branched out a little bit more in a different path, which I really like Prey as well. But yeah, actually, everything Arcane's put out, I've enjoyed quite a bit. So I'm interested to see.
Yeah,
I'm happy to take this journey with them on whatever it is they're putting out.
Yeah, they're a neat studio. That you can buy a bundle now. They announced a bundle where you can get like the Dishonored games, like the definitive edition of the first one, and I think it comes with Prey as well ahead of this, so you can kind of delve in if you've never really experienced their games. But Yeah, they really kind of focused a little bit more in the presentation on a very important feature for Ghostwire. I don't know if you happen to see this.
I did see that. It's kind
Yeah.
of the only announcement they made about that game. It was actually kind of weird because the guy was like, "Man, I've been in this for 30 years, and man, I just don't want to. I don't want to die here. I want to continue to be interesting, and you can
Yeah.
pet a dog." And I was like, "All right." And he's like, "All right, bye." And then the other guy was just like, "Man, it is such an honor to be followed up or going behind." I can't. I wish I could think of the name of the guy they showed. The whoever runs what is it? Tango Studios.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I'm trying to pull up that opening video that they did. They released it. Yeah, so they talked more today about what to expect from the next update for Doom, and it is coming up pretty quick. It looks like they're going to be releasing the Ancient Gods on August 27th, I believe.
Okay.
It's like
Yeah,
their
that's not
first.
far off.
Yeah, they showed just like a little bit about it. I'll put on a little bit of audio for the podcast's sake. But it looks like it's just some story content, kind of like what they said they would do.
Sure.
It just, I think it's coming a lot sooner than people may have thought, especially with the way the state of things. And it was a good surprise.
When did Doom come out? It's been a bit now, hasn't it? Like at
March
least
20th.
a few months.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
It
March
was,
20th. Oh, that is okay. That is pretty fast. I'm sorry. I thought it was a bit longer out
yeah.
than that.
And it's a little weird because like they normally make a big deal out of Quakecon in the community and stuff, and they like end this like small trailer with like, "Hey, watch this other thing, and we'll show you a full trailer."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, it was weird because they're like, "Yeah, here, we'll show you more about what this is at this other live event here in a couple weeks," which I thought was really strange. I will say though, watching the opening of QuakeCon, they're because we've both been, God, multiple years now. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think this would have been maybe my 11th year, something like that. Because I started going when I was like 18, and I'm 31 now. So somewhere in that is quite a few of them. But yeah, I did get a little emotional. I was like, "Oh man, you're right. I could have been in the BYOC just yelling nonsense for a weekend."
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a bummer because it's one of those things where obviously, with the pandemic, that's totally more important. But it is that thing where it's like, I know a lot of people there, and especially our group as well, is like always looks forward to that weekend just because it's, it's a ritual almost where you're like, all right, I'm not doing anything but playing video games for 4 fucking days. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just something to, yeah, I miss it. It's a good experience. I worry though.
If you've never been, QuakeCon is a goddamn good time. It really is. It really is.
It's kind of waved over the years back and forth. Like some years are really great. I thought it was funny too because they showed like the Anatole like in the video, and I was like, oh, Anatole, because we've been having him at the Gaylord for a bit, which is it's weird that they didn't show that hotel, but.
I think a lot of people share the nostalgia of going to the Anatole like I do. I loved that hotel, and it was like central more than like the Gaylord, which is out like if you're not familiar with Texas in general, everything is so spread out.
Yeah,
it's not like when they host PAX in Boston and you can take a train and you're there. It's nothing like that.
No, it's because the Gaylord is, I believe, like almost 30-ish minutes outside of Dallas, something like that. Or maybe it's a little closer to downtown, but it's still quite a drive if you're from up here. And the Anatole is like maybe 10 minutes ish. So it's closer to everything. The Gaylord is sort of its own economy and unit. Like parking is expensive for one, so you can't really go in and out and get stuff. You have to really have everything delivered there or buy their stuff there, which is very expensive. And yeah, you can't really escape. Whereas Anatole is like, it's just, you could do whatever you wanted basically, and just kind of there was like Denny's and other stuff right next to it, so you could walk and then walk back, or parking was way cheaper or free in some cases. And yeah, that Yeah, it's just it's a different feeling. They're both good, I think that, but that one is just more. That's sort of where it began, I think. So it feels more. Um, yeah, there's more nostalgia for that building for sure. And they have elevators that you can ride, and used to throw parties on elevators, and that was ridiculous. And
Yeah,
yeah,
like it was. So they did have it at in Grapevine. I don't know if it was the Gaylord at the time, but post 2010. But QuakeCon, I think, like hit a surge of popularity, probably in the like the 2011, 12 like era of things.
Bethesda bought them. I think is when they started, when it really became a huge thing, because before it was just id and that's it, like it's just id stuff. And then once Bethesda bought them, people really fucking like Bethesda, it turns out. And so we started getting a huge influx, which kind of, that's what I say, I worry a little bit about next year with this being so widespread. It's not that I want it to become more niche, but I don't want it to be overblown with folks. It would be much nicer because the community is sort of like, it's not to say everyone knows everyone, but it is sort of this. There's like a weird understanding of everyone that's there is sort of like, oh yeah, there's a vibe that everyone kind of gets. No one's really like overly wild or super, like there's a few drunk people or whatever, but nobody's ever really like insane or over the top or whatever. That's very like similar group for whatever reason.
Yeah, and they've built themselves to scale at the new place, because like the BYOC hasn't filled up in the last 2 years, but it's because the space is bigger.
Yeah,
it's not for like a want of going. I think that overall it for people out of state, it's a little harder to get here, but if you have the opportunity to go and like rent a spot in the BYOC and just walk around it, like right now I have like some of that Quakecon documentary playing, and they're like showing people in the BYOC right now, and I'm like upset. I'm upset.
Yeah, I know. That's what I say. When I first saw it, I was like, "Fuck, man, that's where I would be right now."
Yeah, like just the hum of the machines and like hearing everybody yell stupid ass shit, and like like people project like memes on the wall and. Like,
incoherent yelling at 4 or 5 in the morning of just in the back, just, and then you hear the whole arena just do one because no one slept. And yeah, I will say, if you do plan to go the next time it's open, it is not a very consumer friendly show. Like if having worked a lot of conventions myself, like it is primarily about bringing your computer there. Like there's definitely events and other stuff that happen throughout the day, but I think those are also really in service of, if you have your computer there and you want to go stand up and watch a thing for 10 to 20 minutes and then go back to games. If you're just walking the show floor, you could do all that in probably 20 minutes and then that's it. So it's like, again, I think it's what it is a unique experience, but if you're going just for the convention side of it, I don't feel like it's really worth it for that.
Yeah,
it's 100% bring your computer and stay for this weekend. Otherwise, there's not a huge incentive to go. And I think that's some. You know.
I hate to sound like a filthy consumer, but like the last couple of years, they've had a hard time keeping things in stock when they do have cool shit too. So
yeah, I know.
Like
it's a little ridiculous, but hey.
I mean,
well, and that's the thing too, is it's like you're gonna wait in line for like 2 hours for this one like shirt or figure, where it's like that's not necessarily, like, it's cool that you could get it, but it's more like, that's 2 hours I could have been hanging out instead. I mean, not to say that you're not hanging out in line or chatting with random people and all this other stuff, but
my ritual is I get all that stuff out of the way first. Like I'm like, okay, I'm done with my shopping. I've bought my 4 cases of balls. We made a quick run to the liquor store. We're gonna vibe the rest of the weekend. And like the Master Pancake show on Friday, which is like, I think the size of the convention has done like a detriment to that show. I love those guys. I've been to like their Austin shows, Dallas shows, QuakeCon every year. I really like supporting those guys. But if you ever go to a Master Pancake show, it's a lot of people way too drunk, way too into themselves, and like, I don't know.
It's the same thing that happened. I can't say personally because I actually still have not seen any of the Master Pancake things, but I would equate it to what happens doing stand-up with drunk people there, where it's like they always feel like they're helping the experience when what they're doing is not helping even a little bit. Because it's like, even if you're ragging on them, they're like, yeah, I'm making it better, and you're like, no, shut the fuck up. But yeah, It's like, no, these people are paid professionals. They know what they're doing. That's why they're here. You just showed up.
Yeah.
And I know you want to be the center, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, my
So,
first
yeah.
year of Quakecon was 2010. It was like right around New Vegas, and like that was a big deal that year. And man, I am so bummed, and you are too. And I hate to dwell on it, but like, it's a good time. I got friends that come from out of state sometimes, and it's like that thing I look forward to. It's like the new Christmas for me.
Yeah.
Like Christmas lost its luster since like 15 or whatever. Like this is just something I can do every year that like
well, it's the only way you're going to get a non-sexual adult sleepover. It's like the only way that that's going to happen is you just go do this for a weekend. And
I have buddies crash on the couch sometimes, but like this is just like, dude, you can pillow fight in the hotel room after just
okay. I think a better question would be, instead of a sleepover, because we still have like smaller lands every 4 months or so.
Yeah.
But it's summer camp for like a weekend, like a very quick, more condensed summer camp where you're just like, there's, I ran into that guy yesterday. I don't know who that is, but we interacted for a second, whatever, and then I remember one year, it was like 2 years ago, there was some guy that had like this really obscure tattoo, and he was like drunkenly demanding people guess what it was, and he would give you beers if you got it right or something, and no one could get it because it was a really insanely obscure thing.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's just I don't know. There's not really quite an experience like it, especially being because I'm not from Texas, but having lived here for quite a few years now, but like I worked conventions for probably 2 years straight and been to hundreds of them, and there's never been one anywhere near this. Even the other game shows, or like what's the other one, like DreamHack, I think but that's more kind of developer side stuff. And then PAX is even different. I mean, that's definitely more. There's something about this show that's just completely different from those. And
it has a culture to it. You recognize people. Yeah, I would recommend going. It's cool. This is what the BYOC looks like when they tear it down, by the way, just in case you want to see the mess afterwards. People build like towers, like pizza towers, and like they'll stack like balls cans as high as they can.
Well, I think they showed the Harambe Shrine at some point in the video. Maybe that was something else I saw somebody posting about missing QuakeCon, but it's crazy. And then seeing, people's builds too, especially if you're a computer enthusiast like ourselves, like, seeing people have like live fish in a computer, or like built out of statues, or, Legos, or a grill, whatever. Just seeing, these super unique computers from just the nerdier side of games, you're still just like, oh man, it's something to see. It's super cool.
Thanks for taking that trip down memory lane with us. I would love like next year, like let's do like a live show for QuakeCon, because
that would be fun. Yeah,
dude, I would absolutely like to. I would also like to like talk to like people in the BYOC. I'd like to try and get like some characters involved, some real dudes. Like get the cultural experience.
I think we could probably make that happen. Yeah,
we should make some shit happen.
I mean, we've all got iPhones, right? I mean, you can fucking record a video on there. You can make it happen.
Yeah. So, and the last thing that I really want to touch on, and we'll move to the other stuff, is Ghostwire. I just like this game. It looks cool. I didn't play The Evil Within. I just actually bought the bundle with both games.
I have played both of those.
Yeah.
I mean, like the first one, I mean, they're both pretty interesting. The first one is definitely more of a straight horror game-ish, or more. It feels a lot more like Resident Evil, the older Resident Evil games. The second one is more expanded. It almost feels in a way like, I don't know if you ever played Deadly Premonition, but it almost kind of feels like obtuse in that way, with like the mandatory stealth and crafting and stuff in that game. I will say the second game, which is sort of why I'm interested to see this QuakeCon stream of them trying to play through that game, because the biggest issue I've had with it is just bugs that are still present in that game. Like there's times where I've stealthed in a bush, and for some reason I must have crouched low enough to shoot me through the floor and like through the game world. And I don't know. I don't know that it plays better than the first one, but it still is not quite as tight as it needs to be. And I think I don't know. I think with this game too, I think they'll do a lot to improve those aspects of the game, because I feel like that is probably what they got harped on the most about it, because the actual story and everything else going on is really wild and pretty interesting. But mechanically speaking, it could use a lot of touch up, I think. But yeah, I don't know. This game looks neat because I'm still not quite sure what this game actually is. Like I know it's a first person experience of some kind.
Yeah, it looks like it. And again, they didn't show a whole lot. They showed you could pet the dog. That was the big news. That's big news. But they kind of showed a lengthy thing about couple months ago, or maybe a month ago, on the PlayStation, like PS5 kind of stuff.
Oh, event, yeah. That was last month, I believe.
Yeah, and it looks cool. It looks like it has like this kind of like melee combat kind of system. I like the look of it though. Like the look of it is really neat, and
it's really strange because it's like I don't know. It's like stiff in a way, almost like the animations are not like they're very I've never watched Naruto, but it looks like the hand gestures and stuff look like this very finite, like you're doing like this thing, and then but everything else seems very like ghostly and loose and kind of like there's this weird neon city aesthetic to it. It seems. I mean, yeah, I'm curious to see more of what this happens to be because it seems really neat.
Yeah.
I would like to get my hands on that one.
Also, just a couple little things from QuakeCon. ESO's free if you want to try that out.
For 2 weeks, I think they said.
Yeah, and they got a bunch of sales going on. If you play Quake Champions right now, you can get a QuakeCon skin for one of your guns. You can join the 200 people playing that game on Steam right now.
I was about to say, there's still people playing Quake Champions?
I actually installed it because usually like at QuakeCon, I'll like install it because it's Quake. It's the newest one. And I think like some people there in the BYOC are thinking the same thing. So there's like a little bit of a population bump. Yeah, right now, 1,400 people are playing the game. So,
wow. And
I'm willing to say that's probably more than they've had in quite a bit.
Quite a while, yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, because I hadn't heard anything about that game, and it's not like, I mean, really, the first person shooter space is so competitive at this point. It's like it's hard to. That's why when I was like, "Oh, Ubisoft put out a battle royale," well, okay, like what? Why right now? And what in this space are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, Quake is. I've never been huge on Quake, to be honest. I was always more on the Unreal Tournament side of stuff.
Dude, 2004 is probably one of my favorite arena-style shooters of all time.
Actually, speaking of that, this is a side note, but have you played the recent Unreal Tournament, the one that's still
like in development?
That has been in development for quite a bit.
The one on the Epic Store that they promised would be like this community-driven thing, and they would like engage the community, and it would be like this big new project, and they were bringing. Yeah, I remember, and my heart was broken when none of that happened.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I played it about like 2 months ago. It's still pretty rough. Like it does feel like that game. I mean, it feels a lot like Unreal Tournament 3 or Unreal Tournament 3 Black Edition or whatever they called that one. It feels a lot.
Feel free to correct me if you hear this in the comments, whatever. Quake Champions is a lot of fun if you're into that style game. Jump in, try it. I think that like keeping a community around that game is a little hard because the veterans playing it are really fucking good at it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them like in there.
Yeah, and I think it's even worse than like say if you're trying to jump into like Counter-Strike or something now, because that community is so big. But at least there's probably a chance you might get in a game with not everyone is super good, where this community is so small that it's like everyone that's actually playing this game is fucking really good at it. Yeah, and I think the champion system is also another thing that like I don't know that a game like this necessarily needs either.
Yeah. Well, what I meant to say is like correct me in the comments, but they either do have a mode where like you're playing the one character class and no abilities.
Oh,
And if
okay.
they do not have that, they should have it for the people who want that experience. Because I think the Quake Champion aesthetic, like the maps and everything, I think it's cool. I don't want to dwell on it too much.
Yeah, we can move past it.
So anyway, the next thing that caught my attention, and this is just typical Apple.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about this, so I'm interested to hear more about it.
Yeah, so to my understanding, the Apple has a real hard time with other publishers, other people like competitors. It's I don't know if it's a competition thing or it's just like they're not getting their slice of the pie. But Steam Link was an issue on Apple devices, and they had to disable the store in the Steam app because they didn't want people buying things through Steam bypassing Apple's like little ecosystem because they get their little bit.
Doesn't work? I was curious about this because I just got an iPhone for the first time. I switched over after like 13 years of Android stuff like a month ago, and I was looking for the Steam app, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's still there, but it's just like not. I don't know. It's not as good.
Yeah, it's because they don't get their slice of it. That's just bottom line. So the big news right now is that a lot of the xCloud stuff that's been getting out there has been really cool looking. I'm into the new hip streaming future we're all moving to, but they're showing a lot of like displays with or a lot of commercials or like demonstrations using Samsung products, Android products. So they were kind of approached about this, and Apple or Microsoft said that Apple was blocking its efforts to bring its streaming game service to iPhone and iPad users. According to Microsoft's statement,
iPad would be great for that.
Yeah, and according to their statement, they said Apple stands alone as the only general-purpose platform to deny consumers from cloud gaming and game subscription services like Xbox Game Pass. The company said, unfortunately, we do not have a path to bring our vision of cloud gaming with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate to gamers on iOS via the Apple App Store.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
Apple has their own arcade now. So what incentive do they have to not have people pay for that instead if they want to play games on their device?
Yeah, but dude, like, I get that. Yeah,
it's frustrating as fuck though. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like, why? I mean. Yeah,
because I don't know who is chasing like Apple Arcade exclusivity. Like, it's cool.
I don't think anybody's chasing it.
Like Android has like their alternative, right? It's like through the Google Play Store. It's like Play Pass. I did like maybe 3 months of it, but
either.
Yeah, I did 3 months of it. I got some cool mobile games, fucked with them for a little bit, and that was it. But as far as like not allowing these large platforms and this cool ass technology to not be implemented on your system, like,
it's pretty wild. I mean, it is. I understand, I guess, both sides of it to some extent. I think it's frustrating because it seems like we're starting to get to that point where exclusives are starting to diminish a little bit. Now, I know with the next console launch that's gonna change a bit more, but it seems like you look at what Microsoft is trying to do, which is probably the most interesting thing, because who cares about a new box really? Like, I mean, especially on the PC side of stuff, like we build a new box every couple years, whatever, or just tweak the box we already have. So like a new box, I could care less about. But their platform dynamic of going, well, you don't really need to buy our games anymore. You just have to buy the subscription, and you can have whatever games we put out at the same time. These console players get them, and then they're also integrating more and more with, with crossplay, which I think another big Rocket League coming up is a huge one on Epic Store because they bought Rocket League a while back, and it's going off of Steam and going on to Epic, but it's free, and then it's crossplay with every system and all this other stuff. So like you're starting to see this meld of companies finally letting the leash off a bit to go, all right, let's make it easier for everyone to play the game, which is one of the things I never understood necessarily with that stuff is like, especially on Sony's side, which I'm sure they make a good bit of money from it. But if they didn't have these exclusives, I feel like they could at least publish that or do something to where they're still getting a large income or intake of the profit by letting the game be played everywhere other than just their box. Like, I don't know what their deal side of it is, what cut they get. from it just being exclusive on their platform or whatever. But it never seemed good for games in general to be limited on where you could play them, because you're already cutting your player base in some half by the best standard, but thirds or fourths if you look at, Switch and PS4 and Xbox and PC or whatever. At the worst end of it, it's like, okay, we have 1 out of a fourth of what we could sell this game for, based on only being able to be available on this one thing. And I can't imagine that that's good for the developer for that to be the case continually.
Well, I mean, who knows, like, what these deals are, right? Like, there's speculation. But I think, like, no matter which way you slice it, like, there should be a way. You're right. There should be a way for them to be able to, like, get their chunk of it if necessary, because their platform is being used for it, right? But if they're not even willing to, like, negotiate that stuff, and that could be Microsoft being maybe a little stubborn and being like, well, we open our platform to iTunes and, like, all this other stuff, and we don't ask for any profit off of things like that.
The thing, though, about, like, the only thing I wonder about that is because, like, this is me speaking totally out in the air, but I don't know what Apple is providing outside of the advertising side of this, because if the cloud gaming thing is what it is, then that would mean the only thing that Apple is doing is just putting it on their store, because Microsoft would be developing the app, they would be pushing the app, all the data from all the games being streamed would be going through whatever service provider you use and hosted on whatever Microsoft's servers are. So there is really no thing Apple is doing other than saying, yes, you can put it on our store to the X amount of people. But their effort and work involved in the situation seems, from the outside, I don't know all of the inner workings, obviously, but it seems like it's very minimal. It's almost, to me, it feels like, I just flip a switch and you can just do whatever on our platform, because all the development stuff, I think, happens outside of a storefront, I would assume. So that is, that's frustrating it seems like Apple playing that side of, like, well, I'm a child, I have all these toys, and you can't play with these toys because we're at my house and I don't want you to touch my stuff, even though I invited you over here to play with my stuff. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, so their response to, like, the game streaming services, Apple, was, our customers enjoy great apps and games from millions of developers, and gaming services can absolutely launch on the App Store as long as they follow the same set of guidelines applicable to all developers, including submitting games individually for review and appearing in charts and search. So I guess what they're saying, but I think it's more the profit thing, but what they're saying is they want everything to be categorized. They want everything to be, like, in their ecosystem. And
they want the money. Yeah. Because if you look at that side of it, that argument is like, this service that's being provided is just like to play the games that are on this service already. So it's not like, if you can watch Netflix on your iPhone, it's not like they have to go through and certify every single movie or show that gets put out. Right. That can be played on their service. Right. So why is the game different? Like, if the service provided is the same as a streaming service, and even more to the point, what's annoying about the Steam side of that is you already bought all that shit. You're just you're just using the screen, basically. Yeah. Like, and the Wi-Fi in it. So why limit this? It's not affecting the platform it's on. And that's even more, that's super annoying.
Well, what's also kind of weird is that, like, Sony had exclusivity on the Apple ecosystem, the iOS, for like, their PlayStation streaming remote play. They had it once for Android, and they stripped it away, and then it was on iOS. But then they brought it back to Android. So, I don't know. Like, to me, it just seems like Apple's not even willing to, like, come to the table on some of this stuff. That's just my opinion on it, anyway.
That's ridiculous. That's maybe one of the frustrating things I've heard in a while. And it's not even something I really plan to use.
Yeah, but I mean, so I've looked at
that would want to do that. That's really
Yeah.
frustrating, especially considered how many people own iPhones. And
I've
yeah,
looked
it's
at like the mobile handset, like they have like this Razer device that you can get that like clips into the phone. Looks kind of
mm,
like a Switch, but it's so I have the Note 10. I can use that for this service if I wanted to, and I did some of the beta testing, just like Bluetooth connection, an Xbox
yeah,
controller to my phone, and like yeah, I could see a use for it. I could see how cool it could be if like all the pieces of it are as optimized as possible or running as optimal as possible. I tried it on like 4G connection, it's pretty decent, and then like Wi-Fi, it's like there's some input delay, but frames are there. So
yeah. Well, I
uh
think you expect it though for not really paying much of anything to then be involved in this service, whereas like that's I think that's a caveat people will accept when they're like, well, I don't have to buy a console, I don't have to buy the games, I really only need a controller, which is like $60, and then my phone, which I already have, and then you can play this now, and you're like, yeah, all right, it's not as good, but I knew that going in that it wasn't going to be because of it can't be yet anyway.
yeah.
Uh, I will say though, you can now with Apple Arcade when that came out, you're able to use Bluetooth controllers on the iPad and stuff now and the iPhone. They haven't added support for the Xbox Elite version 2 yet, which is the one I own. But every other one, I think PS4 and Xbox One controller, regular ones, their support for
Well,
those.
who's to say they're going to be like, oh, we're going to release our own controllers, and now Microsoft is omitted. Sorry. See y'all
Yeah,
later. That's just the
that's dumb.
Apple byline. So anyway, moving
Yeah,
on,
that's
I
really
guess.
yeah. It's just
Fucking,
dumb. It's,
it's
it's
just
just so dumb.
depressing. It's
And
depressing
I'm
for
not
the
the huge
people who
fan
want that
of
stuff.
Stadia or anything, or this technology in general. Like I think it's
Yeah.
very cool, but I'm not like, again, it's not a service I plan to use until I absolutely would have to.
It's just
Uh,
shutting people out unnecessarily, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's reverting back what we've started to see get switched back. Yeah, like I was saying, it's like we're starting that's them going. It's funny too because it's not even a game company. We're just like all the other ones are finally like, yeah, let's start releasing our stuff on other platforms. Like I mean, again, like Horizon Zero Dawn coming out here, Death Stranding, those PS4 exclusives finally coming to PC, and then Xbox having all their titles day and date, and then now for whatever reason, Apple's like, fuck that. I don't want this to come together. Like, dude, we're finally starting to wipe the exclusivity away a little bit and make this it more about the game itself rather than
Yeah.
the box you're playing it on. And now they want to come do that, which is that's infuriating.
And I think that future does benefit like developers, especially small ones. Like,
Dude, imagine having Game Pass on the Switch. Like just
but
you know what I
Nintendo
mean?
is also a company that's pretty
Oh, I
closed
know.
off, and
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. No, I know. But like again, if they could make that deal work where they're like, well, you're already paying for Nintendo's online service, so that's a requirement. And then maybe say to have the Switch integration, you pay like, I don't know, like an additional $5 a month or whatever. And then so you're paying like what, $10 or whatever it is to have that integration. So Nintendo gets their cut and then you get this. I mean, obviously I'm sure they would, I would have to see the math between I guess we'd really have to see the math on how Xbox Game Pass even works to begin with, because that's already crazy.
A lot of that stuff is very kind of trade secret.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, we can move past all that.
Yeah. So the next one I want to talk about, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the Suicide Squad game.
Sure,
That exists.
I have nothing to add. I heard this is the first. Like I said, I heard whispers that that's what they were working on, which I think is kind of a shame for them. Like I'm sure it's different enough, but the fact that like we're not doing fucking Batman anymore, but we are going to do another superhero game, I guess, because we can't. But they won't let us branch out as a studio.
Yeah, like who?
So, and that's without saying I haven't seen anything about it, so I don't know what this game is, but I can assume it's probably that.
As a concept, Suicide Squad's cool.
Yeah.
As an execution and everything recently, who the fuck cares? That's like.
I think you'll find a lot of people do. I hate to be this person, but again, having worked comic book conventions for as long as I have, gotta tell you, people fucking love Harley Quinn, and they love that gang of folks.
So the logo that they showed off, or like the tease image, is like Crosshair, Suicide Squad, like on the back of Superman's head. This is really it.
Oh, oh, that's all they have.
That's all they have.
Oh, that makes that makes sense.
So they said they're doing this DC Fandom event on August 22nd. They're gonna do some kind of big reveal then. I liked. So I actually recently started replaying the first Arkham Asylum game. I loved the first two games. Didn't
They're
care
good.
about Origins. Didn't care about Night. But they gave all those games away for free on Epic not too long ago.
They did, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, might as well jump in. And sure enough, that game's like just as fun as it was. Like,
Yeah, they're fine. Those games are good. I mean, they're good games. I think Night was like the Batmobile stuff was cool, but I think the forcing of it on you, and also by that time the diminishing returns of having like 3 other games that are basically exactly the same game to a degree is like a little harsh. And then I think they also developed what they did all the Shadow of the Mordor games, which those are also very similar to Batman. So yeah, by that point you're just like, all right, guys, we've had this. That's why I wonder about this. I mean, there's been enough gap, but you're like, are we gonna do that again? Because we've done this.
I mean,
So,
this was like like the Arkham Asylum games. I think were pretty influential for like big open games. I don't think that Rocksteady was involved in Shadow of Mordor, but they definitely had an influence. Like WB, like owning the property.
You're right. Yeah,
yeah, them owning that property, they were like, let's just emulate what we did in that Batman game, and it worked. Like those games are pretty decent, and then they fixed the second one after all the DLC shit was going on. And
yeah, I think because I think the tie-in was Warner Brothers. I think they own.
Yeah.
I think they own both. Is maybe what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I liked Batman enough. I'm willing to see a Suicide Squad out of these guys, whatever the fuck that looks like. It's almost like the answer to that Sony Marvel, like that Sony Avengers game coming out.
Oh yeah, that's a Square Enix game.
Yeah. Well, whatever that means these days.
Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. But it was weird to see Square attached to that. I thought that was really odd that that's the game they're doing.
Yeah, and there was I'll just touch on this since we're talking about superhero games and Suicide Squad. There's not much going on there right now. But they did reveal that Spider-Man is going to be exclusive to the PlayStation version of this Marvel game.
Oh, I heard that. Yeah. So which is again another I think maybe that's the thing that Sony does more often that's really irritating. Like I would rather them keep an entire game for like 6 months rather than them keep content out of a game once you get it. And like especially a whole character. Like remember Soul Calibur used to do that, but at least each version got a different thing, I guess. I don't know. It's still like annoying, but it's well, and the same with Destiny too, where it's like you're losing whole missions and strikes and all this other stuff, and it's like, I don't know. I get the incentive for them to do that, but
if that's not where I want to play, that's not going to incentivize me to go buy a. Well, I mean, in some cases, I bought a PS4 to play God of War, but that's like a whole game, not just a small piece of an experience.
Sure.
So
yeah, and I can't. Well, that's what I mean. I can't imagine anybody is like, well, one is so horny for Spider-Man that they don't already own a PlayStation 4 to play the last Spider-Man game.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the hang up is there. And then from the development side too, is like, why did Sony give them enough incentive or dollar amount to create another character completely for their game to then not include in the rest of the game? Again, I don't know how much the characters tie into this stuff because I haven't seen the game, but it seems like the Marvel Avengers thing is pretty. Actually, it's on the front page of Steam right now, so I'll just take a quick refresh of what that game looks like. But it seemed like a third-person action game where the characters are the important part.
Yeah, and Marvel, like, or Spider-Man being like one of the most important Marvel properties, like.
Some would say the only cool one,
yeah.
But maybe that's just me. I don't know.
So I guess I just want to quickly kind of go over some of the stuff that came out in the State of Play. I didn't watch it, to be completely honest with you,
We can really skip it because I don't remember most of it. The only major thing I remember seeing is like Splunky 2 got a release date, which is next month, I believe, on the 20th of September. And then there was a few other neat game announcements, but they were kind of brief. And I only jumped in. I mean, to be completely honest, I watched whatever Giant Bomb put up of their coverage of it, so I watched a little bit of it, but I didn't see the whole thing either. So my perspective on that whole thing is probably skewed because I didn't quite see most of it. And as someone who doesn't own a PlayStation either, I'm, out of the way there.
I mean, I like the PS4 for what it is. I'm a little excited about the PS5, more technology wise versus like some of the games I've seen. But
I would like to play Ratchet and Clank, but that's the only thing I've seen so far. Really
and then Bug Snacks looks cool. That looks interesting.
Actually,
but a lot of these games are coming to PC.
I want to play.
And that's a lot of these games are coming to PC, and those are two examples that are coming to PC. So, PS4, PS5, stuff's happening.
They're putting out another one.
Video games just never stop happening. That's just a fact of life.
Yeah, which I guess we need them now more than ever. But yeah, I don't have. I guess I'll quickly go over a few small news things because there's nothing too major. But Grounded, the game I've been covering a lot of, which I didn't talk about really any here, but it's a really great game by Obsidian. It's basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the game where you're surviving in a backyard against bugs that are way bigger than you. And it's a great game, and you should check out the stuff because I've already covered it, so I won't really talk too much about it here. But they put out their first patch today, fixing a lot of issues people had, some game-breaking stuff, some other things, connection issues, stuff like that. So not a huge, and again, I covered that as well. So if you're watching this, you have the option to find that too. Warzone also started their season 5, I think it was, with another gigantic 46 gig patch, which was dope to get and download on the top of an already 100+ gig install. But yeah, they opened the stadium, which is the big thing people are talking about, and then they added a train that circles the map, which is pretty neat. They also made a really interesting game type in the regular multiplayer, which is it strips you of all perks and strikes, missile strikes, call-ins, and stuff like that. So it's just you and guns, which is pretty interesting, and then grenades and whatnot. So that's kind of a neat thing that they're trying out. And then other than that, with it being the 7th today, the new Humble Choice bundle is out, which I will quickly go over some of the games that are in there. So I'd say the major one that's in this one will be the Vampire, which is that sort of vampire-esque RPG game. Wargroove, which is a strategy game, turn-based strategy, very akin to Advanced Wars, which is super good. That game is worth playing. And American Fugitive, Little Workshop. Hello Neighbor is another one, which I've either gotten for free or been given for free or found for free, or I don't know anything about that game, but for some reason I keep hearing it's bad, but it pops up everywhere, and it has like some cartoon or something. And then another really interesting one is We Were Here, or We Were Here Together, which is like a co-op based game where you direct your partner through communications only. Like you sort of see them and you sort of narrate where they need to go via like an in-game walkie-talkie kind of thing, which is a super neat kind of game to play through. And the other ones I haven't really played. I played a little bit of American Fugitive, which is sort of a hark back to the old Grand Theft Auto games.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that.
Call of Cthulhu, which is one I haven't got to play yet, but I will probably play through now that I didn't have to pay full price for it. So yeah, but Humble's out. It's okay. They've been getting, to be honest, I like Humble Bundle and I like what they've been doing, and I've got an early adopter, so my pricing is better than what it is for most people.
Yeah,
but they've been they've kind of moved away from the solid titles they used to have, and it's been more maybe a little more quantity over quality. You get to pick which ones you want now, as opposed to just being given random ones. But I feel like the random ones given were always a little bit more impressive than what we've been getting.
I liked a lot of the mobile bundles that they used to do, like some of
Oh,
the
sure, yeah.
like I'm trying to think of some of the ones, like Anodyne was on there. That was a really cool one. They had like this weird Cartoon Network mobile game bundle thing. But they had like a bunch of those.
A 3DS and Wii U one at one point back a while ago, which was kind of neat. But yeah, it's kind of I don't want to say it's gone downhill because I definitely like the format of this better, but the game selection has been much less ideal.
Well, they're owned by aren't they owned by like IGN now? That was like the last big story I remember Humble Bundle being involved in.
I didn't know that, but that would change. Yeah, that would make more sense.
Some weird. I don't know. I don't have any opinion of it either way, but
yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, it's good for people who are subscribed to that. I know that their quality is kind of floundered, but these look like a couple solid good games.
This is a decent selection compared to the last couple. I mean, last month had Void Bastards, which I think was the highlight of that one.
Yeah.
And then the month before that had like Hellblade and The Messenger, which are both good. But either those have been free elsewhere or very cheap by now.
Yeah, Hellblade's on Game Pass too.
And with that's maybe the other thing too is with Game Pass now being on PC, their proposition for Humble is like a lot harder sell, I think.
Yeah.
I will say with this month specifically too, if you're a subscriber, the classic and premium subscribers all get all the games this month instead of there's like a tiered system of how many you can pick. But this month, for whatever reason, you get all of them. So there's that too. If you're interested in those games, I think it's like $12 to $14 or something like that. So
nice.
Yeah. Last bit of releases and news, and maybe the thing will end on, but they released a Fast and the Furious game on August 6th, so yesterday. Yeah. For God knows why.
Yikes.
And it has reviewed very poorly. I think primarily because the cost of this game is $60, or you can get the deluxe edition for $90 of this. I assume racing game, but it seems like you're racing against hovercrafts and tanks and other nonsensical stuff. And if you're looking for that in a video game, it's sort of, you know what? Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it sort of looks like Spy Hunter a little bit, which I would say it could be time to get a new one of those. But if you want to just race wild shit without this, Forza Horizon 4 is a very good video game that's on Game Pass, and much better than I think this. Or actually, you could probably play Mad Max and find some car combat enjoyment that's better than what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, I have some gameplay of this up right now. Right now they're just driving through different points, and some cutscenes are happening.
I'm still not really seeing the Fast and the Furious tie-in, other than there are cars and you are driving. Maybe we're getting. Well, no,
Kelly, it's about family.
It is about family. You're right. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not seeing any family. I'm not seeing any characters that aren't cars right now, which is in stark contrast to the series, which is now mostly people and no cars.
The real characters were the cars we drove along the way, Kelly.
I see. Okay, and the memories you made in them. I understand.
Yeah.
So I just want to point on that because it's don't buy it is maybe the ad here.
The camera is so close to this car.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
It's pretty insane.
And apparently there's no keyboard and mouse controls like on the PC version of this game. What the fuck were they thinking?
And they're saying even when the controls were, they are shooting at a space shuttle that's racing away from them. You know what? Maybe this is a great video game. I take back what I said. I think this is a game when it goes down to $10, I will play through this game. But until that happens, it's definitely not worth basically $100.
Just
oh my god. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, okay, that is okay. I saw the season pass in addition to the deluxe edition. I was like, there's another, you could make $120 purchase out of this? But I assume the deluxe includes the season pass there.
The last great game of this generation. Truly.
Yeah. It's why I can't believe that came out or what the need for that was. But
I'll have to watch some more footage because I ain't buying it. I ain't playing it, but I'll watch some more footage and we'll see what that's all about.
Oh yeah, like I said, I promise when it gets down to 10, your boy will play through this game for y'all. But
Thank
not
you.
until then.
Thank you for your humble service.
Hey, I do, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
Well, yeah, that was news, and this certainly was a good time.
Yeah, this was nice. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If you did, thanks everyone for listening and all that. We appreciate it here at It's Your Birthday podcast. This was more of our pilot episode, but I think it went pretty well. I'm sure you'll tell us otherwise, or yes or no if it did. But
yeah,
we should have one of these out. I would say hopefully Friday, if not Friday, Saturday, if not Saturday, Sunday, if not Sunday, Monday. It'll be out in a week, is what more or less. But
I don't get held down to any schedules, so
yeah, I don't let the man tell me what to do.
Yeah, I live as freely. I live as freely as possible. That's just how I function. But no, we'll be around every week. So, you can follow me at the Deadly Robot on Twitch and YouTube, I guess, if you want to do that. But
you should, and you can follow me as well at YouTube/C/birthday party, and then on Twitch at birthday party as well, and on Instagram as Weakling Art, and my phone number is
123
123 5 and a 5.
Yeah, that's the whole number. That's all you get.
You only get the 6.
All right, guys. Thank you.
See y'all.
We are good.
Cool.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We're gonna talk about. Fuck. 1 second. Your camera thing fucked up too, so I gotta fix yours too.
No, you're good. I just welcome back. God damn.
You son of a bitch.
Hey everyone, fucking, are you serious?
This is all in the recording, by the way.
Good. That's what I want.